All right, all right, all right. I am using a new streaming software. So I I've tried to learn as much of it as I can in time for tonight's show. So hopefully you guys can hear my voice. If you can hear my voice, please type a 1 so that I can know that you're hearing me. The funny thing is, with this setup, I don't know who's watching, who's not. I don't know how many people are watching, so I guess it's something I have to learn about in the future. But if you can hear my voice at any point, drop a 1 for me. So it looks like Anthony McPhail is hearing me out there. So that's good to know. Thank you for that, Anthony. Now I know. With that said, let me give you guys a heads up as to what we're discussing tonight. Tonight we're going to be discussing Nigeria's reshaping of the public image. The government is going to nationalize cartoon content for children. Um, we're going to listen to a piece of advice and ask if it's self-hating advice or good advice. We're going to try to understand the history of the maafa, that's transatlantic slavery. We're going to try to answer, can we understand the history of the maafa without kemet? We're going to ask the question or try to answer the question, is a particular person scamming or speaking the truth? Lastly, if we have time, we'll discuss how to use penis power to climb your way to the top. You guys might be familiar with that one story coming out of the continent. Anthony McPhail's out there. He's saying, "Peace, brother Koku. Peace to you too, Anthony. Thanks for being here." With that said, and with all the awkwardness I'm dealing with in terms of trying to publish a show with similar, if not same, visual quality as before, I'm going to start the show officially. And on the other side, I'll drop Shoot Debris topic number 1, as well as introduce any and all of my panelists. So stay tuned.
Hello there, dear listener. We hope you're enjoying this lovely discussion. If you're not already aware, this show is part of a podcast network called KWAZ Radio, a Pan-African nationalist and Garveyite network committed to showcasing the rich and varied thoughts of African people. We have an exciting lineup of shows that we think you'll enjoy, including
the Bitter Medicine Podcast.
I think black people require too much buy-in. Like, we would constantly have to sell black people on things that are beneficial to black people.
The Pro-Black Perspective Podcast.
I'm fearful that our people are not really studying how to get ahead, and we're kind of, continually staying behind.
The Harsh Reality Podcast.
To me, it don't matter. I think people are so dumbed down, it wouldn't matter what you reveal to them. They still are in the matrix. They're in the simulation. They're going to keep doing what they did. They lemmings. So to me, it don't matter, man.
The Learning Curve Podcast.
Sexual access has never given you economic empowerment. The only person who has ever been economically empowered by a sexual relationship is the wasp and his woman.
The Cathedral Cheek Show.
When we start rising up to fight for our own, I guarantee you they'll stop doing what they're doing. I guarantee you they would have let their brother go. They was waiting to see what black folks was gonna do.
Brother Bakari Podcast.
Black people love to claim folks that hate them, right? They're a slave master, and they are ashamed of who they really are.
The Forecast Radio.
Like if you pray to the same deity as like your enemy, and that God blesses your enemy more than you may want to reconsider who you praying to, you know.
And Tanzan, African Mind.
Africans generally are welcoming of everyone. Sometimes, to my consternation, I think that they should be less, welcoming.
If you love our podcast network, we would be grateful if you could rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on social media, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and check out our website at www.kwazradio.com for more information. Thank you for tuning in. And now, back to the program.
Yes, indeed. Like I said earlier, using a new streaming software. I can't find, as of now, my intro and outro, my usual videos for that. I'll be looking for those in the weeks to come. In the meantime, though, let me introduce the panelists that I have here tonight. I have Oni from the Pro Black Perspective. How are you doing, Oni?
Peace. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes,
yeah,
sir.
This is a new thing, man. Because I have to go on Google, so I'm on Google now. That's it, though.
Oh, okay. Thank you for being here. Let's welcome in our brother Black Steel. Black Steel, how are you this week?
I'm doing good. You can hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm doing great. How are you? How was your holiday? Did you celebrate the holiday at least, or no?
I drank.
You celebrated then.
I drank. I ate some food. Yeah. But thanks for being here. And I know Buono won't be here tonight. He has some prior engagement with his lady, so he won't be here tonight. So it's me and Oni and Black Steel and whoever else feels to come. I know Anthony was here a second ago, but I don't know what happened. Yeah, I see you change your cover. That's nice. Black Steel, when you get a chance, I guess you'll change yours as well. All right. In the meantime, let me see if I can get this thing rolling. Let me see if I can do this right. Let's go to Shooter Breeze topic number 1 tonight. Shooter Breeze topic number 1 says, Reshaping Nigeria's Public Image. Government nationalizes cartoon content for children. Do you agree or disagree with this move? This came with a link that's going to take us to YouTube. As always, we'll watch the video and then we'll discuss it.
Nigerian children singing songs of unity, hope, and patriotism at the Unveiling and Rebranding Nigeria Initiative Conference, which held at the nation's capital, Abuja. Nigeria. Themed Rise Up Patriot, it's a gathering of reputable statesmen proven with integrity who appeal to the consciousness of their fellow countrymen to be positive and project admirable characters that will give Nigeria a good name in the international community.
That if you realize what Nigeria is as a country, it is not difficult to love Nigeria because many people love to hate Nigeria. Why? Because Nigeria is something else. Nigeria cannot be stopped. In spite of our problems, in spite of everything, Nigeria is still standing.
What that means is, henceforth, for the next 3 years, we want to raise the content produced here in cartoons about us, about our values, about our tradition and culture, to at least 70% of the content our children are consuming. So that means there will be a lot of investment into animation. So on the 30th, of October and 1st of November in Lagos, there's a festival of animation, creators. 26 countries are participating, so we will be there.
A patriot should be a fully rounded citizen. You must respect your heritage, you must take pride in your history and culture, but you must also be a citizen that obeys the laws, a citizen that votes, because if you don't vote, you are already creating the condition for reckless people to get into public positions of responsibility, and to create more problems rather to solve fundamental needs and aspirations of the citizens.
A former Nigeria International Olympic gold medalist, Emmanuel Babanyaro, frowned at the negligence in the use of sport to promote patriotism to project a positive image for the country.
Whenever we're on the pitch, it's not just us playing. We're representing over 200 million people. You see, that patriotism is being implanted into your head. It's called orientation. That's why you see the average sports person is naturally very patriotic, irrespective of what he or she is going through. You understand? You've never had an athlete ever, no matter his or her complaint, saying, "Oh, I regret representing Nigeria." It never happens.
The Rebrand Nigeria initiative is expected to change this negative perception to a positive one. In Abuja for News Central, I am Emmanuel Bagudu.
So that's pretty cool. I think it's a wonderful idea personally that your children's content, children's media should be reflective of your own culture, value, and outlook. So I think that's a good thing personally. But let me hear from my panelists what their thoughts are. Let me start with Oni. Oni, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I kind of wish that they showed us what they meant about the cartoons. I was kind of waiting for that. Because like I said, I mean, initially I'm like, if it's Nigeria, you know how. But but like they don't really give too much detail, just some sort of patriotism, which on its surface isn't that bad. When I was younger, I wrote I think it was like one of those essays that I liked. It was about how like long story short, it's like how essentially Nigeria, of all the countries in Africa, is in the best position to be what we would call a superpower, right? But as it stands right now, it's very divided and also very religious, and most like a great number of coons are in Nigeria, you know. So that said, it's like yeah, if I like I don't know what these cartoons are, right? And it's really hard to mess up on cartoons, but the reality is that let's say you have a hyper religious government, you have a hyper white, quote unquote white supremacist population. If the cartoon is like that, the people are cooked. Now, maybe the cartoon won't be like that, but that's why I kind of wish they like showed what the values communicated in the cartoon were, because as it stands, if you like see some like hardcore cooning on let's say the TL or just hardcore cooning opinion, it's almost like at this point it's like 9 out of 10, or even I would say like 8 out of 10. Like the person is Nigerian, and that's it.
I appreciate that, Oni. Let me just say this in the chat. Hot Shorty Podcast is out there saying peace, fam. Salute to the panel. Greetings to the chat. Thank you for being here. Trigger Happy 262 Plus says our media needs to be good, and that requires control. content is important too, but the issue is Nigeria is neo-colonial, kind of what Oni was saying in another way. Jose is out there saying peace, fam. Jose says good move, depending on the mindset of the animators. That's a good point. Bakari told me to get it right so I could teach him how to do it. Uh so those are some good comments. Thank you for that. Let me hear what Black Steel has to say about reshaping Nigeria's public image. What are your thoughts, Black Steel?
So, this is kind of a difficult question for me because Nigeria has been in the news recently for some of its human rights abuses. There was a story recently where they locked up several school children who were protesting the high cost of food. They put down riots violently. They suppressed the will of the people in many cases. So, to me, this seems like they're trying to put sugar on a turd in many ways. So, I don't think there's anything wrong with cartoons and controlling the content. But my question is, if you're not going to do anything to improve the society, right? You can't sit up here and we're going to put these cartoons for content because the conditions for the people are still the same. So I think that if they're not doing anything to really address the problems of the country, who cares about these cartoons and trying to instill patriotism? And there's something Malcolm X said. He said, "Don't be so blind with patriotism that you can't face reality." Right. So many times, speaking from American standpoint, some people are so patriotic, they love America so much. They used to say, "My country, right or wrong," right? I'll never apologize to the United States of America. And that's just Americans, just arrogance. We want people to be able to critically analyze their country. If their country's going the wrong way, they need to be able to speak out freely and address it and try to solve the problems that affect the country. Not just, okay, put these cartoons on for the kids so that way, they'll be able to have pride in their country and be patriotic. But if you're not dealing with the problems the children are facing, who cares about these cartoons? That to me is a problem. And many times we're so busy trying to shape the image of the country that we're not dealing with the problems that exist within that country. Nigeria is not exempt, but we're just talking about Nigeria right now. So that's my thoughts on it. I think that to me, if you're not going to try to improve the conditions for the people, if you have a president that siphons money away from government institutions and resources and government programs, and the cost of inflation makes it so high people can barely afford to live. This is, to me, who cares? Who cares about the cartoons? Let's deal with some real life, some real issues. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
That's a good point. I can't deny that point. My follow up question, you Black Steel, would be: what if they were working on a lot of the ills of the society as well as doing this for the children in an African centered way too? Because I also understand Oni's point of it'd been nice to kind of see what design language you're using, what kind of content you're pushing. But let's say they were tackling the issues, or at least trying to tackle the issues at hand, and they were putting out some not just Nigerian centered but African centered content that will kind of help the children to grow up to be problem solvers, to deal with the problems that their country has. How would you feel about it then?
Well, that would be good. That would be good if that was the case. I think that would be a great idea. I just want to make sure that it's something that's done for the people instead of, hey, you know what, don't focus on the problems of the society and make it so bad. I think one thing that stood out to me is that it's usually the young people that are on the front lines with these protests. It's usually the children, the teenagers. They're the ones that are usually at the forefront of any movement. And if you're not going to create a country for these children to thrive. So when they grow up, they can use their intelligence and their skills to enrich Nigeria instead of taking their knowledge and moving elsewhere. Then what's the point of watching these cartoons? They're going to watch these cartoons, And when they get old enough, they're going to leave Nigeria because they're not going to be able to find jobs. They're not going to be able to deal with the corruption. They're not going to be able to deal with the lack of food or resources. So it's got to be hand in hand. You got to deal with the society and make it better for the kids. And then if you want to push the your programming, that's perfectly fine and good. But you got to deal with the reality that people in Nigeria are struggling, and these cartoons, they're not really gonna do anything. I mean, if I was a kid, I'm hungry. I'm gonna cut this shit off. I'm hungry. That's what the kids are protesting. When they got arrested and they were charged with terrorism of all things. So they've been released now. But to me, I think that this is just an issue of them wanting to sanitize their image. All right, you got to deal with the reality of the situation first. That's my thoughts on it.
Appreciate that, Black Steel. Let me see. Oni, would you add anything to what Black Steel had to say?
Yeah, I'm reminded of a cartoon called Akili. I don't know if you guys heard of it, but Akili is,
Yeah.
I think it's a Tanzanian cartoon. And it is, it has a lot of educational content, has a lot of sharing, a lot of good lessons. And sometimes, occasionally, Akili speaks Swahili, or she has whole Swahili episodes. And then there's like an alternative cartoon, Bongo Kids, I think, and it has science, math, and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of it is in Swahili. It's I mean, yeah, it's nationalism done right. There's also another cartoon. I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, Tanzania kind of has that kind of stuff already. Now, I'm not going to say Tanzania. I mean, I don't know. I do think that Tanzania is better than Nigeria, but I'm not going to say that it's better than Nigeria. But when you return to Nigeria and what it really is, at its core, and why the class, the upper echelon, would be saying we need to instill some patriotism in these people, while the unemployment rate is like 60%. The youth unemployment rate is probably 80%. It is like who knows what it's going to be. But one thing I could say is that it's probably not going to be in the indigenous languages. It's probably going to be, maybe it's going to be in pidgin, maybe, but maybe more probably in English. And in being in English, not having that kind of versatility that you see with Akili, and then of course, if the government is involved in the way of, not necessarily making good cartoons, but in the way of, you know, promoting, uh, let's say, their nationalism, or even possibly promoting their religion, you could run into trouble. Because I can tell you guys this: I went to Mombasa, Kenya, yes, the last week, and it was pretty interesting. But I got into this, a little nice hotel, and I put on a TV for my son, and there was a channel that it looked like it just had like Arab cartoons, right? And at some point, the cartoons stopped, and it's all in Arabic, and I don't know why. My son wanted to watch it, and I was like, all right, whatever, who cares, right? And then at some point, it seems like they were just reading a prayer. Like they're just straight up reading a prayer on on television, you know. I'm saying this to say that you really got to know what the content is, because it was a children's program, right? You had the little cute cartoons, and they were speaking in Arabic, and you don't know what they're saying, and then eventually it just and I think at some point you hear them maybe making some prayers or saying stuff, but of course you don't know what they're saying because it's in Arabic. And then eventually it's just straight up, I don't know, could be just reading the Quran, like just straight up. And the thing about Nigeria is that it is very, very divided. It's one of those countries where when you say Africa's tribal, you're talking about Nigeria, right? And it's dominated by the north, which has like a predominantly Muslim population, and some of the Muslim population there are a violent Muslim population, right? They have like terrorists inside, all that kind of stuff. Because again, Islam is not necessarily violent, but Nigeria, you know. In certain countries, it is. You know what I mean? Just like Christianity is violent in certain countries, right? And Judaism is definitely violent in certain countries. But but what I'm saying is that, yeah, you have that. So now you got to ask yourself, well, if the state is involved with the creation of a cartoon, and the state is also the one that's suppressing people, the state is also the one that's corrupt. The state is also the one that's giving these youth a disadvantage at life, because of their corruption, right? If that state is also responsible for making content, making children's content, is it going to come out like in a key? Right? Or is it going to be like how the CIA gets involved in children's education in America, right? Is America going to have a hand or influence in the state education? Because one thing I could also say is that, in America, are really really prolific, is that uh, we tend to just call each other the N word casually, you know. And I'm not saying the state was necessarily involved, but I'm also not going to say the state was necessarily involved, and that's what I'll say.
I appreciate that, Oni. In the chat, let me just go back for a second. In the chat, Real Black Gentleman's out there. He said that if the cartoons were more like comic books, a Captain Africa isn't a bad idea. I agree with that. Harsh Really Podcast is out there. Says Nigeria way too tied to the WEF and the West, would need to actually see the content produced. I agree with that too. Shirley Easy E is out there saying greetings. Shout out to Cheryl. Thanks for coming through this week. And then Web came in. Web, I'll give you the wrench in 1 second. All right. If anyone wants to join the panel tonight, just click the link pinned to the top of the chat. You too can join. We're a few people short tonight. I don't know where Anthony went, but hopefully all is well with him. If there's no other thoughts on this prompt, let's just go to Shooter Breeze topic number 2 then. All right, Shooter Breeze topic number 2. Shooter Breeze topic number 2 says, is this self-hate or good advice? Will this cause people to hate Black Americans, or is it overdue? This takes us actually to Reddit. Let me see. Yes, this takes us to Reddit. And let me see. This video was titled African American Man Gives His Friendly Advice to Africans Plan to Relocate to the U.S. So it's a short video. We'll watch it and then we'll discuss it.
Move to the U.S. America is not what you think it is. If you choose to get a black woman, you need to stick with a black woman that came from Africa, or you need to bring a woman from Africa here. Do not think that you're going to get the same godly treatment from the black woman that's raised here in America, the descendants of slaves, that you got on the African continent. You need to keep a tight community with the other Africans who moved over here. Because the black community that's here and was here for the past 400 years is divided. Nigga, we can't even go to a goddamn party without the fear of a nigga shooting it up. If you step on a nigga's shoes wrong, this nigga might steal off on you. He might kill you. It is not love in the black community in America like it is in Africa. Most of our kids are reading on a 5th and 6th grade reading level. They are losing their virginities early as shit. Early as elementary, middle, and most of them early high school. We don't believe in marriage. Our women have a 24% marriage rate. Our women have double-digit body counts by the time they getting out of high school. These are things you got to think about here. Another thing, when you get here, you got to work like your ass in captivity, so you better be ready. All you can think about is work, get home, go to sleep, send your kids to school to get indoctrinated by the white man, and then work again. These are just a couple things you got to think about when you come to America.
All right. What's interesting about that advice is it sounds like the advice that Black Americans say that foreign blacks receive from their people when they come to America. It's interesting. With that said, let me start with Black Steel this time. Black Steel, is this self hate or good advice? Will this cause people to hate Black Americans, or is it overdue?
I definitely think it's self hate. Um, he's just coming out with every possible generalization in the book, right? If you're that scared, then stay your ass home. Okay? If you're so scared to be around other black people because you're scared you might get into a fight because someone step on your shoes, stay home. Every comment he made was based off of some racist generalization, um, or some self-hating bullshit. Honestly, I go out all the time. You know, people ain't stepping on my shoes and fighting with me, and all the other stuff. Uh, as far as other things, other comments he said, that's totally up to him. Uh, if you're talking about black children and their inability to read or do good in school, that's a product of systemic racism in our society, and you're not really addressing that. But these type of black people, right? They don't see the good in themselves. They don't see the value and the benefit in their own people. So they're gonna sit up here and come up with all type of generalizations and insults possible. I don't think he's saying anything that is advice or anything. It's just true. In my opinion, it's just self hatred. Period. He just really just talking negative, and he really deep down, he probably believes the stereotypes. He probably believes everything that's said about black people. He probably needs to get out and interact more with other black people and be among the community, because yeah, you're gonna have some problems, but it just bothers me that these narratives are what we're talking about now. Oh, black people this, black people that. Like, we're just inherently messed up people. And I just don't agree with that. So no, I don't think that he's giving advice. Uh, he's speaking from his own trauma. If I could say that much, I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there.
Appreciate that, Black Steel. Um, with that said, Oni, you heard what Black Steel had to say. What say you to what you heard in that video?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I don't like in, well, I used to really dislike in America, which is it's really popular to have self hate. It's really popular to be negative on black people. In fact, I remember because like I just brought up the issue about the N word stuff, whatever. I was on I was on a social media platform, and I brought up some black guy was just giving out don't follow these red pill guys. These N words, N words, N words, N words, and and everybody was just praising it. Like, yeah, man, you tell them. I hope the young people will listen to this. It's like how much like we don't even realize in our casual conversation we're using a word associated with our enslavement. We're using a word that basically I want to say objectifies us. Just makes us into what they call a black object, and it's just normalized to just disregard black people, and it's not even like we're the only people that use it, although that would still be bad, right? But I'm telling you, like, I could just be out. Well, back in America, I could just be out, and you could have no black people in sight, and people are just like, yo, that N word did this, and man, my N word, N word. You're just like, like, what did we do? But yeah, so as far as this guy is concerned, I mean, I feel like a lot of what he's saying um, has a little bit of validity, but I also think everybody's going to say these things, regardless, and not just about America, but I mean, like, you'll have, like, I could find people in Tanzania, like, if you speak the language, right? They're talking bad about the women there, or they're talking bad about the men there. Some of the women will say, "Hey, I think a lot of these men are, funny." You know what I mean? I think people, particularly of let's say unhappy people, will talk bad about women and men. They will do that. Now, that's not to say that this experience is invalid, and I think that a lot of people are going to have bad experiences with women and men. But I can say that, for instance, when I was in America, now granted, a lot of women I did have the best relationships with were they were Caribbean, right? But I think that was more of a coincidence, from the fact that I was in New York City, where it's like most people are Caribbean. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, but like even so, it's like, yeah. I think I think overall this is self hate, but and I also see how it parallels what allegedly black people are being told before they come to this country or come to America. Um, but I also do think that when you have too much self hate, it does drive people into hating you. It's like it's the unintended consequences where you tell people, hey, you got to stay away from black people on Fourth Street. You got to stay away from black people on Fifth Street. You got to stay away from black people in the Sixth District, and whatever. When you tell them that much so often, they say to themselves, well, I'm not keeping track. I'm just going to stay away from all of them. You know, and I think that that's something that we tend to overlook. Now, I mean, yeah. So I mean, maybe he had good intentions, but it's really bad to speak ill of your own people and your own women. Like it's really not as good a quality as you might think. That's all.
Appreciate that, Oni. In the chat, Trigavi262 Plus said, I try to be clear that the advantage continental Africans have is that there are barely white people or no white people. Black proximity is strong, but I can never skip the issues we have on the continent. He goes on to say, you could also argue that a lot of our cultural traditions are much more preserved on the continent, but it doesn't erase the erosion process. But still, black proximity is such an advantage. D. Webb says a lot of the stuff he mentioned is class issues. You will experience promiscuity, crime, etc., with any poverty stricken population. He's just yapping. I like that. He goes on to say, Webb does, I'd say the bigger issue is toxic feminism and how propagandized American women are. I thought that was a good quote to ask a follow up. What are you guys' thoughts? What Webb just said in those last two statements? I'll start with Black Steel.
I think he brings up a good point. We never talk about um, how feminism and really the desire to be white women has affected black people in this country. A lot of the aspirational black desires that black women have are predicated on them being rich, middle class white women. Um, and I think that in a way it views black men as the enemy. And we see that especially in the dating discourse, where many black women and black men are almost competing with one another. And I think that we really don't understand the feminist movement from its very inception was an integrationist movement. It was meant to integrate white women into the realms of power, right? So when a woman is in charge, when a white woman or when a woman soldier murders a colonized person, this is feminism, right? If you can put women in positions of authority, that way they can share in the spoils of empire. That was the very goal of feminism from its inception. Um, and we've lost track of that. But many of the leading feminists from the very beginning were racist. You know, we often talk about Susan B. Anthony and how she fell out with Frederick Douglass, how he supported her initially, but they fell out because black men got the vote before white women did. This was an issue for her. Um, but overall, this is just I think that they don't really touch on that. Um, too much. We don't really ever examine that. And Trigger Happy says something else about being counterinsurgency. It's no coincidence that Gloria Steinem, one of the leaders of second wave feminism, was an admitted CIA agent, and then the conversation and the discourse went from being black men and black women united against the white power structure to now they're talking about how dealing with the oppression of black men, black men's misogyny, black men as oppressors. The conversation completely changed. This is no doubt the work of a skilled propagandist. I'll leave it there.
Appreciate that, Black Seal. Yeah. Webb's statement is an interesting one about toxic feminism. No one really talks about it. I'll be interested to hear what Oni has to say about how feminism, toxic feminism, and propagandize American women, and how feminism is a counterinsurgency. Let me hear what Oni has to say about it. Oni, what say you?
Yeah, what Black Steel just finished with kind of goes back to the first conversation about state propaganda. And the reality is that, if we don't know the content of a cartoon, we can't, we can't say, because like at this point in time, you know, America will give you cartoons with, women, let's say like women, or let's say boys who are women who are boys, or boys who are women, whatever, just women on top of women or what have you. In fact, I was like, I can't even watch Netflix. I mean, I have it, and I watch a few programs, but I'm telling you, like I can't watch Netflix. Like I was trying to watch it on the bus, and I had to start hiding it because like all of a sudden, I'm watching a cartoon and all of a sudden two women are like making out, and it's just like, what am I watching? Like, why am I don't want to, that's I don't want to see that. But anyway, my point is this though. Uh, well, sorry, about the feminism thing. Yeah, that's another thing that we don't really talk about enough, and that is one, the huge economic disparity in America, even in the Black community, right? And two, the reality that the Black community, and sorry, I don't mean to say Black community, I mean like the Black community in America, right? But the reality that the Blacks in America technically have, let's say, the highest income of Black people on the planet, right? Um, or generally speaking, right? Now, obviously, there are much richer people on the continent of Africa, but not usually, not normally. That's also a huge economic disparity in Africa as well. But when it comes to what the guy was arguing about, which is like a traditional woman and sort of like so forth, right? A traditional woman kind of exists in a huge economic disparity, um, or it's a matter of let's pretty much say like a non-working woman, which is not something that's really typical in the West, right? A lot of the women are taught to work and aspire to work and be independent of themselves, right? And that is not going to necessarily align with the quote unquote values of a traditional woman, right? And by traditional we mean like a woman who's not necessarily going to be a woman with a different sort of interdependence, right? And that's kind of the crux of like that's kind of the underlying um, issue in the conversation about the quality of women in one country versus the quality of women in another country, right? And so that's a yeah. I know you guys. I don't know if you guys can hear this guy in the background, but he's all right. So yeah, I think not just even. I think like what D Web said about the class issue. Like realistically, you have this almost like you have it such that you'll have a lot of well-to-do Black women in the country, or you even have a lot of I'll put it this way: how white people were talking about. They were like, "Hey, 4 million people, 4 million women are on OnlyFans, right?" And then somebody else pointed out, yeah, and 80 million men are supporting OnlyFans, right? Are purchasing OnlyFans, whatever they do on OnlyFans. I don't know, but the reality is that you have people looking for economic opportunity in the sexual sphere, and they have that in America. I mean, sorry, in Africa, but they have it like kind of on blast, public, embraced in America, right? And in so much as that's like a thing where it's like, hey, sex has monetary value for women, right? You already kind of like the wholesomeness of your relationships are already sabotaged, from just basic premises, right? Basic principles. And of course, this kind of, like, again, you don't have to, like there's going to be exceptions to the rule, but there's also going to be, like I was dating one woman from, like one African American woman from Texas, and she was like, um, she was telling me that her aunt would tell her, there's no such thing as a woman being poor and having a pussy. You know what I mean? And because of this, she like was conditioned to just ask for small change, or bus fare, after after sex. It was kind of like, what, bus fare? Like, I was like, okay, whatever, and of course, I stopped buying her food, but it was like I just put the food money I was going to spend on whatever. But it's like it's that kind of it's that kind of social conditioning, and also the fact that a woman can out earn a man like tremendously, right? These kind of things kind of shift the relationship and the basis of a relationship from what it would be, and it's kind of like, it kind of is an economic problem, but at the same time, um, but yeah, and it's something that we don't really discuss too much.
Appreciate that, Oni. So I put up this so-called Tyler Durden. I guess he wants some attention. He was asking what kind of discussion is this, and he says, "I'll listen," because Bakari answered him and says a pro-black Pan-African channel. And here he is saying, "I'll listen just in case I think you guys are trying to start trouble in my country. I'll have to report you people." I'm like, dude, who are you? I'm sure you're not a subscriber. I'm sorry, who's about to say something?
I'm just laughing. Like, who is this
Yeah,
guy?
like who is you? Like, if Tyler Durden is being a problem in the chat, you guys with a wrench, just get him up out of here. Because it sounds like Tyler's not even black. So Tyler, speak up and address yourself. In any event, yeah, only I saw that thing on Twitter the last couple of days where a white woman made $43 million, or she earned $43 million. Um, Mind you, it's not what you earn; it's what you keep, right? But she earned that much, and people were comparing it to like NBA players and stuff. She's making more than like, I know only one know who this is, but like Jason Tatum and them guys a year and stuff like that, off of selling sex, which is kind of an interesting thing, and that's mostly, you could bet money that's mostly white men buying that shit. That's very interesting how things are. But is there any other last thoughts on this prompt here?
Yeah, I
KW
can
don't
say
speak.
about that. I just want to say about that. I remember I heard about Nicki Minaj like a long time ago, maybe like a decade ago. But before that, she was just a street rapper, you know. But the first time I hear about her is that, yo, look at this woman's body, you know. So yeah, I think a lot of like sex sells, is a big motto in America, and like I feel like sex sells. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it's not present in Africa, but um, it's not as much. Oh, you could be wealthy selling sex in Africa. I don't really get that vibe. But in America, like yeah, if you want to be a successful woman, well, in an entertainment industry, you know, selling sex is one thing, and then these women stand up and they speak to a wider audience that's like, yo, sell your pussy. And like I said, this woman was from Texas, and her aunt was like, you gotta be like, that pussy's your purse, pretty much. Like you gotta be making money from that. So you know, yeah, I think, especially like you know, like considering like Nicki Minaj's, because I like she was like legit like just a lyricist, I guess, I don't know, and then now, but like the first time I heard about her was not like based off of her skills at rap, but more so like her body. And the same with Megan the Stallion. The only thing, like the only reason why she ever came across my TL was because people were like, "Yo, look how does her knees do that? Oh my gosh, her knees!" You know, so I think we kind of downplay just how much these economic forces are pushing us towards a culture that's really not, you know, that good for men and women, like for relationships. That's all.
Appreciate that, Oni. Um, if there's no last thoughts, let's go to
Even
Shooter
real
Breeze.
quick for that, the woman you were talking about who made all that money, um, yes, she was a white woman, but also too, she marketed herself. Oh, I'm 18. I'm still a virgin. Like there was something she also marketed, not just her being a white woman, but a young white woman who was barely 18, who had never been touched, right? So not only is it just sex sales, but also pedophilia is big. You know, here a lot of people look at this girl who looks like a teenager, and we can never ignore. America's a sick country. And she probably made a much of her money off of white men lusting after a barely legal child. So that's one part of it as well. It's a sick country we live in.
Absolutely. I saw a couple months ago there was a white woman. I didn't watch the interview, but it was on Twitter. But the headline basically intimated that she was able to make millions off of OnlyFans because she could pass for being 12. So yeah, absolutely. Uh, the country is a mess, and the problem with the country, it wouldn't be a it wouldn't be a problem for me so much if it stayed within the country. The problem is that it gets exported, and a lot of our people start picking up on it here in this America and outside of it, like in the Caribbean and stuff. There's people who get influenced by this stuff, you know. D Web in the chat says, I think a lot of that OnlyFans thing is propaganda. Wouldn't be any females in the traditional porn industry if that was the case. Degenerate recruiting tools. Most quote unquote content creators make less than $100. I can see that too. Um, Jose says internet also blurs. No class separation, no intellect separation, no age separation. That's a good point too. Um, if you just went by the internet, everything is just kind of negative. That's a good point. Yeah, good thoughts from the chat. Chat, please keep the comments flowing because we're short staffed tonight. So keep the comments flowing. You guys will be the honorary panelists tonight, as you always are anyway. Shooter Breeze topic number 3. Shooter Breeze topic number 3 says, can we understand the history of the maafa without kemet? Now this is one of those videos that are kind of long. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play it at 1.25 speed, and hopefully that will help cutting down on the time a little bit. So we'll watch it and then we'll comment.
The intersection of ancient Kemet, Kush, and the Maafa, the African Holocaust, or transatlantic slave trade, holds profound significance in understanding contemporary geopolitics and the African diaspora's identity. Recognizing ancient Kemet, Kush, as the cradle of African civilizations underscores the cultural heritage and ancestral ties that diasporic Africans rightfully embrace. While many scholars traditionally mark the beginning of the Maafa in the medieval period, Dr. Kwame Nantambu extends its origins to Narmer's unification of ancient Kemet, highlighting its resistance to Eurasian invasions. Despite awareness of enslavement in East Africa by various empires like the Romans, Greeks, and Arabs, scant attention is given to the East African involvement in the transatlantic slave trade. Notably, the enslavement and trafficking of remnant black populations from ancient Kemet and Kush during the collapse of their dynasties. This historical connection sheds light on the enduring impact of colonization, exploitation, and displacement on African peoples across continents, shaping their experiences of oppression and resilience. According to Dr. Musa Lam's documentation in the African Union Factbook, following the Persian invasion of Northeast Africa, many ancient Kemites migrated West and Central Africa. These migrations were driven by factors such as oppression from foreign invaders and a desire to escape their rule. These ancient Kemites' descendants would later become victims of the Maafa, the transatlantic slave trade, and be trafficked to the Americas. Historical records indicate that with each invasion of ancient Kemet by foreigners, a significant portion of its indigenous black population sought refuge by emigrating to other regions of Africa, particularly south or west of Kemet. This pattern of migration occurred repeatedly, with scholars identifying as many as 6 major migrations westward across the Sahara Desert alone. Professor Aboubakar Moussalon, from the Faculty of History and Human Sciences at the University of Cheikh Anta Diop in Dakar, has shed light on these migrations. He has highlighted the work of Yoro Diao, a historian from the late 19th century, who compiled Western Sudanic oral traditions regarding migrations from the Nile Valley. These traditions, spanning from the 7th century BC to the 6th century AD, corroborate the existence of 6 major migrations from the Nile Valley toward the west, across the Sahara Desert. Each of these migrations, as described by Diao, was prompted by external invasions of the Nile Valley or by the oppressive regimes established by foreign rulers. These movements of people not only shaped the demographic landscape of Western Africa, but also underscored the Nile Valley's profound influence on the cultures and societies of the Western Sudan. The first migration might have been a result of the Assyrian invasion of ancient Kemet and the defeat of the Kushite kings of the 25th dynasty in 660 BC. The traditions of the Soninke, Sarakhole, founders of the Ghana Empire, 250-1070 AD, from whose ashes rose the Mali and Songhai empires at different times, assert that their remote founding ancestor was born in the region of Sona or Aswan in Upper Kemet. He brought with him 2 zoomorphic divinities, the serpent and the vulture, the ancient Kemetian symbols of royal dominion over Upper and Lower Kemet. The water-dwelling serpent, Bida, became the national deity of Ouagadougou, capital of the Ghana Empire. Moreover, these traditions speak of a jackal that guided the early migrations and therefore answers to the Kemetian opener of the way, the divine jackal Webwat, or Anubis. Boubacar Lam situates the departure of the Soninke ancestors from Kemet no later than 486 BC as a result of the exactions of the Persian king Darius, who reigned between 522-486 BC on the inhabitants of the Nile Valley, the foundations of the society and state that would later become the Empire of Ghana would have occurred no later than 460 BC. The Songhai Empire, the last of the 3 early great empires in West Africa, was said to be originally established by Kushite immigrants. They may represent a branch of the Kushites from Kemet that chose to move west after 660 BC. There are 2 tarikhs, Western Sudanic historical manuscripts that survive from the 7th century. One of them describes the migration of the magicians who contended against Moses, c. 1230 BC, westwards into the country of the later Songhai II, found the city of Kukia. This would suggest Songhai Nile Valley origins dating earlier, even than the 25th Kushite dynasty, 750-660 BC. The Lebu of Senegal's Atlantic coast in and around Dakar assert that their original homeland was Libya. The word Lebu was the ancient Kemetian name for the land and people west of the Nile, i.e. Libya, and was also a word meaning lion. The Lebu have an interesting ritual called the lion game. in which actors dress and act like lions. There is also a clan of fisher folk among the Pular-speaking people of Guinea, who are called Diba. The clan totem is a hippopotamus. In ancient Kemet, one of the words for hippopotamus was dib. Moreover, the Diba use exactly the same kind of harpoon used by ancient Kemetian fishermen and hippo hunters. In the Kemetian language, Pereye became the term pharaoh. In Wolof and Pearl, the word Fari is a title of the king. The first pharaoh of a united Kemet was known as Mena. The first king of both the Tukolo and the Soninke was Mana, a slight corruption of Nano, the title the Akan people of modern-day Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire give to their kings. The Akans are said to be blood relatives of the Soninke, Sarakole of the old Ghana Empire, who are now spread over modern Senegal, Gambia, Mali, Mauritania, Guinea, Sierra Leone, Burkina Faso, and Guinea-Bissau. According to Boubacar Lam, the earliest kingdoms of the Western Sudan from about 460 BC were neo-pharaonic kingdoms and would remain so until the beginnings of Islamization of the region with the Almoravid conquest, 1076 AD. Another important stream of the emigration form, ancient Kemet, came down southwards through the Congo forest. From the Congo forest, some went westwards to occupy the near west coast of Africa. Others more migrated from the Congo forest, precisely around the general area of present-day Cameroon and the Gabon, to occupy East Africa and what is today the Sadc countries. This was the branch from ancient Kemet that European historians call the Bantus, of the now famous Bantu migration, which took place between 1000 BC to 1500 AD. But originally, they were from the stock of ancient Kemet and Nubia who migrated to avoid the foreign invaders who attacked their homelands in the Nile Valley. Enslaved Africans from the Happy River Valley were also trafficked along intercontinental trade routes to Western and Central Africa before being sold to colonial plantations in the Americas. From the end of the 17th century, Africans arrived in France in significant numbers, and during the 18th, royal policy permitted French slave owners in the Americas to bring their slaves to France. Tous ces blacks became a more common sight in France. Mukhachles has been published about the African presence in other parts of Europe. However, a number of Africans, especially Ethiopian envoys and pilgrims, visited Europe during the late Middle Ages. And by the 15th century, Ethiopian monks and other Africans, including some slaves, were living in Venice, the Vatican, and neighboring cities. Venetians were slave traders and slave owners too. Although most slaves seem to have been of European and Asian origin, some were Africans. Indeed, the trade in African slaves increased after the fall of Constantinople had restricted the Black Sea traffic. Most seem to have been obtained from Kemetian ports, a point which suggests that their origin included the Nile Valley of the Sudan. Documentation is too scanty to generalize about the Africans' lives in Venice and neighboring areas. Some reports assert that they became absorbed into local families, thereby accounting for their virtual disappearance by the late 18th century. Also relevant to their status is the fact that unfree persons were excluded from certain crafts. So African slaves and servants probably suffered this disadvantage. Some observers, however, have noted that slaves were granted the protection of the law. All slaves had to be baptized, and this may have encouraged more lenient conditions. However, slaves were unfree and unequal, and the physical and psychological limitations suffered require more study before final conclusions are reached. Dutch expansion in West Africa developed more or less spontaneously. In 1617, the Dutch were so strong in Senegambia that they were a dominant force in the island of Gorée and had largely eliminated not only the Portuguese but also the English and the French from trade in Joal, Portugal and Rufisque. They held their strong position for over 50 years. At the same time, their ships visited Loango, the Congo, and Angola. Initially, like the English and the French, they were little interested in the slave trade. The turn of the 16th century, however, heralded a new phase of European expansion in Africa in which the slave trade grew in significance to become of the utmost importance to the Dutch as well. This phase began with the purchase of slaves in Elmina, Accra, Arda, Benin, and the Nile Delta, and also Calabar, Gabon, and Cameroon. The slaves were sold in return for sugar to the plantations on St. Thomas Island, then occupied by the Dutch, or were transported to Brazil. In the Eastern slave trade, enslaved Africans were taken from the east coast of Africa, the modern countries of Kenya, Tanzania, Mozambique, and the island of Madagascar. They also came from the Savannah area, which includes countries such as Mali, Niger, Chad, and Sudan, and the Horn of Africa, which covers Djibouti, Somalia, and Ethiopia. Enslaved Africans from Sudan and southern Egypt were transported to Zanzibar before being smuggled into the Americas. In the mid-19th century, Zanzibar was a hub for illegal slave trade, dominated by slavers from the United States, earning it the moniker of the Kmart of the illegal slave trade, as described by Dr. Gerald Horne. During this time, the United States strategically targeted Lisbon, perceived as one of the weaker major colonial powers, to establish control over the illegal slave trade, with London primarily focused on monitoring slave trade in West Africa. East Africa became an open route for illicit activities. By the 1830s, the United States had established a practical monopoly in the region and fiercely guarded its position. An elongated triangular trade network emerged, connecting East Africa with Brazil and the United States, particularly Salem, Massachusetts. Salem became synonymous with slave trade to the extent that Africans associated the United States with Salem. American nationals would purchase vessels and rent them to Brazilian and Portuguese slave traders in Brazil. These ships, protected by the American flag and manned by American crews, were used for round-trip voyages to Africa. Shipbuilders in eastern ports, including Beverly and Salem, constructed vessels specifically for this Brazil-Africa trade. Zanzibar had a notorious reputation as a major site for the African slave trade. Records indicate that between September 1832 and May 1834, out of 41 vessels arriving in Zanzibar, 32 were American, while the rest were from England, France, and Spain. This trade flourished rapidly, as observed by a Salem merchant writing from Rio de Janeiro, noting the increasing number of vessels departing daily for the African coast to procure slaves. The Ottoman Empire was a major participant in the illegal slave trade and trafficked enslaved Africans to Asia and the Americas. The territory of the Ottoman Empire in the 19th century included the Nile Valley. One of the major purchasers of these Africans were the Portuguese, who smuggled them to Brazil. The hemispheric context of the Confederacy has fortunately received increasing attention by historians in recent years. The rebellion by the slaveholding region of the United States did not occur in isolation, but occurred in the context of a global struggle over slavery. While Britain worked to end the slave trade and slavery worldwide, nations such as Brazil, Spain, Portugal, and the Ottoman Empire benefited from the industry and hoped to maintain slavery, if not the trade itself. Gerald Horne, in The Deepest South, examined the critical importance of Brazil in the minds of Southern politicians as a potential ally and eventual refuge after the end of the American Civil War. Horne argues for a larger role in the historiography for slaveholding Brazil, as well as other parts of the Lusophone world, in our understanding of the context for the Confederacy. Along with Cuba, Brazil was a slave state, but with its immense size and political independence, it held an outsized role in the mentality of Southern politicians before and during the American Civil War. Brazil continued to hold a special place in the minds of slave-owning Southerners as a refuge for some intransigence after the war's end. The ongoing, albeit illegal slave trade coming from Portuguese colonies in Africa and the Ottoman Empire was an additional complicating factor in the history of slavery in the Western Hemisphere. Global British efforts to put a complete end to the slave trade, as well as to slavery itself, consumed a surprising amount of British resources, from Royal Navy contingents patrolling the west coast of Africa to diplomats pressuring foreign governments to adopt significant legislation against the entire industry. Confederate representatives might have used the good offices of Spain to gain recognition from Portugal as well. Portugal was even smaller than Spain, of course, and of less international significance and military potential. Despite this weak position, it was a nation that boasted not only an African empire in Angola, Mozambique, and elsewhere, but an outsized role in the illegal slave trade that continued to the Americas throughout the 19th century. Despite British naval and diplomatic efforts to destroy this commerce in human cargo, some of the slaves transported by the Portuguese came surreptitiously to Brazil or Cuba, while others were purchased within the Ottoman Empire. A traditional ally of Britain, Portugal nonetheless resisted entreaties from London to put a stop to this practice among its merchantmen and shipping companies. Like Belgium, another small nation with outsized territory in Africa, Portugal nonetheless could have played a role in a coalition of states, which might have also included Brazil, to buttress the Confederacy. These states, of course, relied upon the toleration of the British Empire, the only power with an effective veto over major operations by these minor countries. Ancient Kemet holds profound importance in understanding the intricacies of the slave trade due to its rich history and pivotal role in African civilization. Scholars like Dr. Kwame Nantambu extend the origins of the transatlantic slave trade to Kemet's ancient resistance to Eurasian invasions, broadening our historical perspective. The migrations of ancient Kemets to West and Central Africa documented by researchers such as Dr. Musa Lam and Yoro Diao, reveal patterns of movement driven by external pressures and oppressive regimes, reshaping the continent's demographic landscape. Moreover, the intersection of kemet with the maafa underscores the enduring influence of colonization, exploitation, and displacement on African peoples across continents. By recognizing kemet as the cradle of African civilizations and understanding its connections to the slave trade, we gain deeper insights into the roots of contemporary social and political dynamics within the African diaspora and beyond.
All right, hopefully that was good for you guys. That's a video from Cam Javers, who's been on the panel before. So make sure you guys head over there, like, share, and subscribe. Make sure to do the same thing here too. Make sure to like the video, share it with your peoples, and subscribe if you haven't already. Just trying to figure out if the interface is difficult to navigate with this new interface, but it seems like Jose is fine. I don't know. Anthony seems to be coming up and going off and coming up again. But Should Breeze topic 3. Should Breeze topic number 3 says, can we understand the history of the Maafa without Kemet? I'm going to start off with Black Steel on this one. Black Steel, can we? Or something else? Go ahead.
I mean, we have before, right? Many times you think about the Maafa, you think about the transatlantic slave trade. But I think that this video does a good job of expanding that view, and that you show that all of Africa was affected by this catastrophe. It wasn't just the trade of people across the Atlantic. It was also the trade of, dealing with the Ottoman Empire, with the Portuguese in Brazil, which also going to Europe. So this was a continent-wide issue. And also, I'm glad they pushed the date back, going all the way back to, Kemet and other issues they had. So it took it back from, because, when you're in school, you're teaching, talking about, slavery, talking about going back to the discovery of European colonization of the Americas, right? And the need for slave labor there. But this video did a good job of illustrating. It goes back even further than that. It goes back to, even to the begin, even to the old kingdom, really, and how Africa's people, for all our differences, we have many things in common too. So this, to me, a lot of people who tend to say, they joke and say, "Oh, we was kings," or make it seem like black people in America had no connection to Kemet, which is just outright true, outright false, I should say. And I don't understand why it's such a hard thing to grasp, because white people recognize ancient Greece and ancient Rome as the center of their civilization. And these crackers have no connection to Greece or Rome. They was probably some pig farmer in France or someplace. But they can understand that their society, that the golden age of the society initiated there. So with Africans, why is it that when we look towards Kemet as the centerpiece for our culture, we get told that we're delusional, we get told we're hoteps, and I think the video did a very good job of connecting the different cultures and experiences of African people throughout the millennia, and how they dealt with invasions. I like you referenced Dr. Gerald Horn book, The Deepest South. I haven't read that one yet, but I do want to read that. He talks about how the goal of the U.S. Confederacy was to expand steady southward. Like they wanted to buy Cuba from Spain because Cuba was a large island that slaveholders coveted. They wanted to continue to go into South America, Central America, all the islands of the Caribbean, and make a slave empire. And it was only their defeat at the hands of the Union forces that prevented this. But there were some Confederates who actually did migrate, and their descendants live in Brazil to this day. I think they have a parade like every year celebrating their heritage in America. So I really enjoyed the video. I don't mind the length. I thought it was really good and educational. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Black Steel, Trigger Happy in the chat said, this video is good at completely eradicating the idea that the diaspora of the Western Hemisphere are only West and Central Africans. He said people from Sudan, Egypt, and East Africa or Southern Africa were trafficked as well. Let's go to Oni next. Oni, what say you to this?
Yeah, it's a good video. Controverse, shout out to Controverse. Um, can we understand the history of maafa without kemet? I think he makes a good case for our genetics being more diverse than West Africa, and that's something that I've always said. Although I typically look at the maafa as like not from the perspective of what we were at the time, I guess, but more so, as the Europeans coming in and devastating stuff. Now, obviously, we had a intricate history before we were in Western Africa, and obviously, um, white people tend to downgrade or degrade that. But as far but I think, but yeah. So I mean, I could appreciate this sort of content that kind of gives Black people a broader sense of what was Africa like, or what was pre-colonial Africa like, you know, because the impressions that we get from white people about pre-colonial Africa are are very deficient. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I expect white people to lie to us. You know, I expect them to tell us any old story. And right now, I'm working through the Shaka Zulu um, miniseries. I'm trying to watch it with my son, and I'm kind of regretting that I'm watching it with my son. I put it off for a long time watching it because I never seemed to be able to catch it in the beginning or whatever. But it's clearly written by a white man, and it's clearly, has Africa depicted in such a way that you're like, oh yeah, these Africans were silly. You know what I mean? These Africans were, like at one scene, like the second episode. Spoiler alert, right? One scene in the second episode, there's like this woman that the whole village thinks is dead. Okay, they're carrying her quote unquote dead body, and then the white doctor looks over and he sees her finger twitch, and he's like, "That lady's not dead; she's alive." And like, come on, you really think a whole village is not gonna notice this lady's fingers moving? But it's that kind of like you're not gonna notice that the lady's breathing, right? It's that kind of like that's what these white people want us to believe Africa was, And so, thanks to Conjuverse, and other people, but thanks to Conjuverse for, um, giving us an impression that no, Africa had, it's traditions. It's people coming from one country trying to establish like it's nation building. And that's kind of like what I used to have in my old literature. You know, and of course I have that in my new literature too. But my whole thing is that yeah, we have to. Um, I appreciate this from a standpoint of, if you really think that black people were just some people who would carry a, a sleeping person, I guess, or a sick person, and go bury them live, right? Then, yeah, that's, this kind of content kind of says, hey, look, that's not what we were, right? And I could appreciate it from that because a lot of black people are under the pressure. Because I don't know why I'm watching this Shaka video at this point, um, but I think a lot of people were watching it when I was younger. So, and it's like to me, it's like, well, why would we be watching this? Honestly, but that's pretty much it.
Funny thing about that, not recognizing someone's alive and people thought they were dead. That was a European thing, man. They used to put all kind of bells and stuff in coffins just in case you were alive. You pull the string and the bell will ring, and I forget what term comes from it. Grave watcher, gravekeeper, some term comes from it. They just have to sit someone out there just in case you were alive, and that bell rung because they found their ancestors in graves clawing at the inside of the box and all that kind of stuff. It's funny how they would put that on us, you know. Um, there's a couple other comments in the chat I'll get to, but Real Black Gentleman was kind of happy to hear him say Neo Pharaonic. And then he said, yo, he just said the throne went west, basically. Yeah, which book was that Black Steel and I did for the book club? But basically, that was the discussion that, we came out of Kemet and we're kind of on the run throughout West, throughout all directions in Africa for a time there. Cheryl said, let me see. Cheryl said we should use Kemet, Kemetiu, to refer to all African diaspora. So you guys can speak to that too when you have a chance. She said excellent video. Anthony, I see your comment. Try again. I'm actually waiting for you to come up and see if I could lock you in up here on the panel. But with that said, let's welcome in Jose to the panel this week. Jose, how are you?
Yes, hello. I'm I'm okay. I'm cool. It's getting really cold in here, but yeah, alive and kicking. How are you?
Good. Thanks for coming through.
Yeah, the subject. MGverse does a great job with his video. I like what he does. He touches subjects like language, this one was yeah, thorough, I must say. Actually it's confirmed that it's generally confirmed that, for example, Serer that live in Senegal are they have a history in Kemet. And 1 + 1 is 2. Serer and Jola, that's like two brother tribes, and Jola claim to come from the Great Lakes, and I figure Jola and Serer, the two brother tribes, descended down the Nile and ended up in Kemet. I figure, but yeah, we've been chased into the continent from the what's now called the Middle East, and of course the Iberian Peninsula, and I landed in Senegal. I landed near the capital of the province, Casamance. The locals say Casa di Mansa, the house of the king. But anyway, the capital of the province is called Ziguinchor, and that's the to the contrary of them saying we bastardize their language. The French bastardized the language, and the city is now called Ziguinchor. But yeah, locals say, and it's also in Wikipedia, but it's probably Yorugu that wrote it. But it used to be called Ischiga Noschora, and that's in my language. And yeah, I I got a long story. That's maybe for another subject. Maybe when language is a subject or whatever. But they say it's the oldest Portuguese fortification or fort or whatever. And Eschiga Nostra actually means they came, we cried. So yeah, it's a quite early Portuguese settlement, and he Kemji first touched the early days of slavery and mentioned the island of Gorée, and yeah, I believe there's a lot of people came from that region. For example, I believe, and that's a language connection. I believe people from Haiti come from that region. Uh, um, uh, Seneca village had a Senegalese connection, right? The banjo is an instrument from the Jola. So yeah, I love this video. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff he digs into that are rarely touched, and that's what I love about Chemgiverse. It's yeah, what can I say? Great video. Not to hijack the show, but I could go on for days. Great video.
Yeah, quick question to everyone, panel and chat. Did the speeding it up take anything away from its what's the word I'm trying to find? From your abilities to understand it, or was it clear enough for everyone?
I actually forgot. I actually forgot that it was sped up.
Oh, okay. Okay, good, good. Because, sometimes County puts up some of his videos, but they're 40 minutes an hour and all kind of stuff, so it's hard to put them up sometimes.
Oh, may I add? May I add something? May I add something? I
Yeah, go
uh,
ahead.
I did the DNA. I did the DNA. My heritage or whatever. I forgot. I don't care. And out of it came how do they call it? Mesoamerica and like from Mexico along the western coast of South America, almost to the southern tip of Chile. I got a DNA connection there. So today or yesterday, I was joking I'm wilding out on Twitter. But anyway, I joked about my royal bloodline reaching out, reaching to the Americas. So yeah, that's another factor, Yeah, I mean, make of it what you want, but I'm gonna stick to my royal blood, Mansa Musa's nephew or whatever. What was it?
Yeah, Mansa Musa, who Tariq Nasheed said became Montezuma. Yeah, but thanks for that, Jose. Stick around if you can. Still waiting for Anthony to try to come back up. I guess this thing is giving him problems. I don't know why that is. For you guys on the panel, is the interface when you join as a guest, is it difficult to navigate? Yes, no?
You
I mean,
asked.
it is right. I mean, the only thing is that you need Google Chrome, but they kind of tell you you need Google Chrome, so I don't think that's Anthony's problem. But yeah, you just sign
Okay.
on. Yeah, that's it. It's pretty cool.
Okay. Okay. Any last thought? Well, any other thoughts on this prompt? All right. Well, we're gonna make good time, real good time tonight. Should be topic number 4 then is should be topic number 4 says, is he scamming or speaking the truth? This takes us to Instagram. This takes us to Instagram. We'll watch. It's a reel, so it's short. We'll watch and then we'll discuss.
Here's the other problem with the church is that anytime a person is in need, y'all go to running and dropping money. But let me tell you something, the poor will be with you always. And there is no blessing connected to blessing the poor other than getting back what you gave to them, but no multiplication. Multiplication is segregated for tithes and offering. When you give to the poor, the only thing you do is help them, but you don't help yourself. Charity does not bring wealth. Only the tithe does that. So when you give $1 to somebody on the street talking about I did my job, God like, thank you, but it ain't gonna help you. Read your Bible. Here's the other problem with the church is that anytime a person is in need, y'all go to running and dropping money. But let me tell you something, the poor will be with you always.
and there is no blessing connected to blessing the poor other than getting back what you gave to them, but no multiplication. Multiplication is segregated for tithes and offering. When you give to the poor, the only thing you do is help them, but you don't help yourself. Charity does not bring wealth. Only the tithe does that.
So like I said, it's a short video. I played it twice. I wanted to read some of the comments just to see what people's thoughts were. And back in the days, it says basically he's saying don't give your money to the poor, give your money to him. Clown, clown, clown. Discuss Doe said this is the closest we can get to a scammer confessing to scamming. Michael Palmer says time to stand up and walk out of that church. Layla Cinnamon says don't help the poor, help me with my luxury lifestyle. Son Michaud says, say what? Laugh. Go and sell all your possessions and give the money to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. So you see a lot of people are kind of pushing back against Pastor Keon Henderson and what he had to say about helping the poor. So Shooter Breeze topic number 4 says, is he scamming or speaking the truth? Let me try to get Anthony in while I can see him here. Anthony, how are you this week? Unmute your mic, brother. No. Okay, Anthony, I don't know if you see how to unmute your mic, but you should see a microphone icon somewhere there. All right, we'll come back. We'll come back to Anthony. Hopefully he'll get it right. Jose, what say you? Is he scamming or speaking the truth?
I was on another frequency, sort of. I'm shocked. I'm shocked. Uh, Especially the Yesayers in the room. Like 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 are you hearing what he says? But what it made me think of is you have this documentary maker with a particular style, Adam Curtis. And if you watch the first episode of The Century of Self, and after that you watch the first episode of the trap, fuck you body. That's another short series. If you watch both first episodes of 3, you'll see. Well, I tend to see that first they made consumerists of us. They taught us to demand stuff, things that we wanted. But when we learned to demand stuff, we started to demand what we needed. So civil rights movements and women's rights movements came up, and what you see in the trap, "fuck you, body," is, I guess, the solution that in that you see they turn us against each other. So this dude made me think made me think of it yeah, like literally the title of the second documentary, "Fuck You Body." It's a cold world, and people are getting insanely individualistic. Like how can you say it? What is a church? What is a church? It's a community building, and it hasn't been a community building for a long time. But this is insane. This is insane. I'm flabbergasted. Resume. I'm flabbergasted. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Jose in the chat, Real Black Gentleman says only the tithe does that. Only that 10% does that apparently. Cheryl says it's true that giving money to the poor doesn't help them in the long run, but what you can do is give them skills. Real Black Gentleman says there's a cartoon on hip hop cartoons with a similar appeal about the tithe. Cheryl says this guy isn't invested in giving his own people anything of substance. That's the real problem. Lastly, Real Black Gentleman says it's about separating tithes and offerings. The idea is that the tithe comes first and everything else is additional. I see Anthony still has some issues getting on the panel, so I'll go to Black Steel in the meantime. Black Steel, what say you to this? Is this guy a scammer or what?
I mean, he's just a typical preacher, if you ask me. I don't really see the difference between preacher, scammer. It all kind of blends together, if you ask me. But one thing he said, I mean, in the comments they mentioned Matthew 19:21. Give all you have to the poor, and you will have riches in heaven. Then come and follow me. Now, that's Jesus who said that. So if you ask me, I don't know where he's getting his information from. But the problem is that we have ready access to this book called the Bible that Christians supposed to believe in. So his words directly contradict those of what are written within the scriptures. So what I recognize is it's just a method for him to get money, because you should want to help your fellow man, especially when they're down, right? In Islam, that is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, giving alms to the poor. That's the requirement that Muslims have to do in order to live a good life. So, but this man is saying that's all well and good, but that's not going to heal your soul, right? So his concern is more of life in the hereafter. So it's okay to help them, but if you're concerned about your eternal well-being, you're gonna store up riches in heaven. That means you got to tithe. And he's basically selling people on the idea of of a hereafter, suffering on earth, so that way in the hereafter you can have some benefit. So yeah, I definitely don't trust what this dude is saying, but I think it's par for the course of all religious institutions. We're just trying to get money. Remember Bishop Bling? Wasn't it Bishop Bling? The Christian church has come a long way from when it started back in the first century. People having religious ceremonies in their homes and praying in secret, to now it's just the largest uh, money laundering organization in history. So I'll leave it there. I'll let Anthony speak. Thank you.
All right, Black Steel, thank you for that. Let's see if Anthony can speak with us. Well, Anthony just dropped off again. I don't know what's the deal, man. With that said, let me read some comments. Cheryl said this guy isn't invested in giving his own people anything of substance. That's the real problem. Real Black Gentleman said it's about separating tithes and offerings. The idea is that the tithe comes first and everything else is additional. I know I read those before. KW7 is still with us out there. He said a preacher is a glorified pimp. Trigavi262 Plus says there can be an appeal and understanding that nation build requires those of reliability, which means they must be self-secure in wealth, but wealth distribution is an absolute must for Africa. Lastly, Real Black Gentleman says, where in history did we give 10% of our wealth to a priest every week? Please show me the source. With that, I'll throw it to Oni. Oni, is this guy scamming or telling the truth?
Yeah, so I do want to say that I think Anthony said that he couldn't hear this chat because I noticed that his mic wasn't muted. So I don't know if he's I don't know if the window he's using is itself muted. That might be his problem. So hopefully you can hear that. But yeah, obviously he's scamming. I mean, like it ain't no, you know what I mean? Ray Charles can tell you that. But the thing that the larger issue, I think, is that, the church in general is a scam, you know? And especially, I was having this conversation with this religious brother at one point. And I realize, you know, we got to come to terms with this, or I got to come to terms with this, or basically, most people don't read. You know what I mean? Like most people don't read. So you have these like a lot of what gets people is ignorance. You know, because most people don't read. So us on the panel, we read. All right, we read. That makes sense, right? Some of us even write, but the reality is that like you go to a church and maybe the pastor read. And not maybe, I think the pastor reads, right? But the congregation, generally speaking, is not reading. You know? A lot of times when you see somebody who does read, they tell you, hey, I'm not even involved in the church. Like I don't even go to any religious organization. It really comes back to, yeah, you know what? People actually don't read. Um, and so when people don't read, you can fool them when they think you did. When they think you are an authority on something, you can fool them. Now you don't have to be particularly well read. You just have to be an authority on so on and so forth. So, I don't want to say who I was speaking to, but there are people who they follow a religion. Okay, they believe the religion is the truth. It's the quote unquote word of God. And then you press them about the religion. They say, "Look, I actually haven't read it myself, but I can give you contact. I can give you communication with somebody who has. I can give you, the pastor. I can give you an imam. I can give you a whatever. I can give you somebody else who has." And that kind of tells you, because on the one hand, these people are convinced this is the actual word of a God, right? And a God is not a joke. If there were a God, um, you would want to pay deference to something that can obliterate you in seconds or whatever, right? However, these people are convinced about this, yet um, they like somebody else can tell them what to do. You get what I'm saying? Somebody else can tell them, hey, you know what? You shouldn't be talking to this person. Someone else can tell them, hey, you shouldn't be giving money to the poor. You should be giving money to your church. Okay? Someone else can tell them, that's not a good person to marry. Somebody else will tell them, hey, come to this back room and, play with my feet or something, right? Kiss my feet. Let me sleep with your wife. Let me do this kind of stuff, right? That's a huge problem when it comes back to, yeah, if you're not reading, or if you're not reading the actual sources, that's also another problem. Because, I'll say this, I know Anthony said that, last week, nobody can say anything bad about Malcolm X. And I'm not trying to say anything bad about Malcolm X. But what I'll say is that allegedly, according to Dr. Ben, okay, and this is me, right? According to Dr. Ben, one of the things that Elijah Muhammad was doing was testing out the women. If you brought a woman to, you brought a woman for, in order to marry her, right? Elijah Muhammad would see if she's got this stuff for you to marry her, right? That's embarrassing. Okay. Apparently, allegedly, this pissed Malcolm X off, but the reality is that that's what religion can do. And I use Nation of Islam mostly because these guys didn't even have a Quran. Okay, these guys didn't even have a Quran, so it's like even if you were well read in the Nation of Islam, you were reading from what this guy was telling you, who was pretty much trying to sleep with your woman. Who was pretty much just, abusing his power. So it's like, even if you can read, you got to go out and read good things. But the reality is that, but that is so far off from the experience that most people, most humans, not even black people, but most humans have. Most of us are not reading, and we're not reading anything good. The people who are reading, however, I would like to say that a lot of people who are reading are probably in the upper class. Mostly be and I say that mostly based off of the experience that we have, where we go to college and we start reading. A lot of us do most of our reading in college. Now, obviously, some of us read after college. I like to put myself in that category, but for the most part, most humans are probably doing their most reading in college, and then we stop. And unless we're like in the top of our field where we're reading scientific papers every week and magazines, but that's the kind of reading that we're doing. A lot of people outside of that are not reading at all. Okay, maybe Instagram, maybe Twitter, maybe whatever, but that's not real substantive reading. So I'm saying all that to say this guy is talking to a people who he knows do not read, but will give money away. If you're giving money to the poor, you're giving money away. So he's just saying, look, I know you don't read the Bible. I'm going to say, read the Bible, right? To make it seem like I read it. And in my Bible, and because you haven't read it, I read it, and you think I read it, and I'm telling you that it tells you to just give me money, right? And I could give you the verse where it tells you to give tithes is good, right? That's it. You have been you will get you will get swindled, and and for me, I'll be honest, that's the whole purpose of the church. It's to get these ignorant people, right, to to bow to the group of literate ignorant people, or the group of people who are behind the church, and this guy's behind the church, in his community, and that's it.
So let me ask a follow up question. Thanks for that, by the way, Oni. Let me ask a follow up question that's around nation building and Africa. We have, as we know, Africa is a very Abrahamic religion dominated space. If any of you gentlemen on the panel, or you folks in the chat, ladies and gentlemen in the chat, were to become the leader of an African nation, let's say, knowing that, hey, you're probably going to have serious turmoil if you try to immediately eradicate religion, then what do you do with it? How do you handle the religion problem for the next generation or two in this hypothetical African nation that you're the leadership of? Let me start with Oni on that one.
So the religion problem. I mean, the thing is that I'm not even sure. So, like I said, the religion organizes. Like, so I wrote in my last book, Wanga Lifu. You guys can check it out. But in my last book, I wrote about how religion is just one of those social mechanisms for like that facilitates the elite. Okay, facilitates that upper class, if you will, right? The reality is, if you have like I think when it comes to nation building, right? If you have enough people in critical institutions, right, of a similar ideology, a similar belief system from you, right, you take over the state. And that's and people have to remember what the state is. The state is the arbiter of violence. If you really pursue a state to the to the most definitive degree, if you will, right? You are controlling the violence of that community, right? In that sense, it's like it depends on like to what extent or to what degree you're really serious about nation building or what have you, right? But if you take over the nation, right? The reality is that over time, you will take over the institutions. You will The resistance will be suppressed, right? if you're doing it right. If you're not doing it right, obviously you will lose your nation. Okay, but if you're doing it right, if you're suppressing that religious voice, if you will, if you don't want the religious voice, that is right. If you're suppressing that religious voice, if you're suppressing so on and so forth, the reality is that over time you will form a state that follows the belief systems of the founders. It's like they say the ruling ideas is the ideas of the ruling class. And of course a lot of this is borrowed from um, you know, what I could see is correct in the Marxist tradition, but basically that's it. I mean, I think that the hypothetical problem of what are we going to do with these religious people? I think people, like I said, most people are not reading. Okay, most people are just looking for authority in their life regarding what regarding the supernatural world or regarding the just regarding life. What makes a good marriage partner? What makes a good husband? What makes a good leader? Right? These are questions that religions try to answer. Like I said, I'm reading through Shaka Zulu. I'm watching Shaka Zulu, the miniseries, and I just reached the third episode, and it's about Nandi and how she was, and how basically how her life was before Shaka was born. She sleeps with a prince, a witch saves her, all that kind of, it's nonsense, right? No disrespect to the Zulu people, but it's nonsense, right? And but it's a supernatural story. Okay, it's a supernatural story that legitimizes the leadership, right? And all you have to do, and what it really captures for us is this reality that you have these cultural traditions, right? You have these religious traditions that justify the leadership, and the reality is that no one is so firmly, holding on to it in so much, at the risk of their lives. Like very few people are going to do the martyrdom, to a distinct extent. And I say that because I'm inside of Tanzania, which is about 50-50 Christian and Muslim, right? But the president is a woman, and the president is a Muslim woman. So it's like I don't that kind of like indicates to me no one, not that no one, but like depending on where you are, like obviously if you're in Nigeria, you're going to have, look, we're going to go for the Fulani man, period, right? Because of that economic disparity. But if you're in you're in Tanzania and they chose Magufuli, the Christian guy, and his runner-up was a Muslim, just off of that, that unity thing, and she was a woman, and it was just like, okay, whatever. So it's like, yeah, for me, I think that religion is a problem, but it's only a problem because they're organized and they funnel money towards people who then leverage that economy towards political representation, right? But if you can curtail their political influence, if you can curtail their economy, um, then you're good. But that's an important thing to really note here, that 10% tithes is a huge advantage for the church. Because I always telling people this, but or not always, but I explained this a long time ago, where if you take 10% of a group of 30 people, right, income, you're earning 3 times the average income. 10% of 40, 4 times the average. 10% of 500, 50 times the average, right? So depending on the size of your congregation, you're suddenly very wealthy, like very locally wealthy. And if you have political ambition, as religious people tend to do, right? If you put, and because religion tends to have political implications, right? Oh, the man is this, the man is that, the woman is this, the woman is that, right? If you have political aspirations, but you also earn 4 times, 5 times the average income in your area. And the average income, even in the poor area, 4 times that is huge. And the average income in a rich area, 4 times that, 40 times that, 50 times that is huge, right? So yeah, if you have political ambition, yeah, you can have that sort of political influence. Now, if you are a leader and you cut back on that political influence, or you are a leader and you put your loyalists in power, right? Then it doesn't really like I don't think it really matters. Like you can take over the state pretty effectively as long as you put as long as you keep your loyalists in positions of power. And that's kind of what every other people are doing, including the church. The church does not, but the church puts in loyalists in positions of authority. And, like we could see Trump doing that in America. We could see the Democrats doing that in America. Everybody puts in loyalists. And that's why I would say, just to finish, ideology is very, very important. That's it.
I appreciate that, Oni. Before I go to Black Steel and Jose, just read some comments from the chat. Cheryl thinks that it's a generational issue. You can't go into an African nation and change what they believe. It took generations for Abrahamic religions to be drilled into us. It'll take generations to get it out. Trighabi262 says, I agree that to do anything in terms of religious reform requires a state. My two issues will always be, what do you replace it with? And how do you make sure there's no backlash, even if you can quell it? Cheryl says, what needs to implement, we need to implement educational institutions, social media information, counter to the Abrahamic teachings. Absolutely. Our boy Anthony is out there in the chat. He couldn't get the panel to work. He says, I would make traditional religions official and promote indigenous culture and give incentives to those who embrace the traditional culture. I like that kind of thinking. Trigger says, yep, spirituality or religions try to deal with the human condition is what I've tried to explain in previous prompts. KW Don 7 says, Rwanda forces ministers to go through theological training before they can open up a church. Yeah, I saw that too, but I didn't get a sense of what was the training. Well, I didn't get a sense of, is it just more Abrahamic training, or is there some kind of push to Africanize Abrahamic religions? I wasn't certain about that. But with that said, let me hear from Jose next. Jose, what say you as far as that hypothetical that I gave?
Well, it's a church thing, right? You can preach to the choir, or you can go to where the needy people are. And I think those needy people that are lost in those Abrahamic religions, you need to go get them where they are. And I think I think I got something. Well, anyway, yeah, I tend to see layers in the metaphors, and what's that other word? Um, um, Allegories. I tend to see a lot of deep, very deep stuff in those allegories, and maybe it's just my mind, but I really believe that it's a thing, because it's so complete, but it's so different. It's not fairy tales. It's literally, um, what I tend to see is literally the science, or the science of the mind, or something like that. But anyway, yeah, you need to find something that you go where they are, and then you break it apart, and you build them up again, just like what pimps do. You pimp them back. You break down the structure that they live in, and you build it up again. And yeah, that's what should happen. And probably on a stealth, probably stealthy, because else they start, yeah, or else they revolt and label you satanic or whatever. But yeah, you have to go get them where they are. That's my conclusion.
That's a good point. You have to go and get them where they are. In the chat, Cheryl says that Christianity, Judaism, Muslim religion are not culturally ours. Doesn't matter how many ways you turn it, for Africans, it will never work. She says you can't fit a square peg in a round hole. Now, I wholeheartedly agree with that, to tell you the truth. I was just curious to see what Rwanda was really doing by forcing them to go through theological training. I'm just curious what that really means, you know? With
I
that
believe,
said,
I
Black.
bel if I
Uh,
may respond to that, I believe it's a bureaucratic thing. It's maybe it's to it's control. It's governmental control. I believe it's more of a bureaucratic thing than going into a religion.
okay, okay. With that said, Black Sea heard everything else everyone had to say. What say you to it?
So I definitely believe in the separation between church and state, right? People should be free to worship as they choose. However, your religious beliefs can have no bearing on how we run our government. I think that's why I tend to lean towards secularism. You want to worship God if you want to. If you want to bump your head on the floor, pray to Allah. If you want to shout and scream for Jesus, or if you want to do whatever you want to do, then that's fine. However, your you will still pay taxes in our government. You will not be tax exempt. You cannot campaign politically, like you can't support any type of politician. If I find out you're supporting a politician, will raise your taxes. Um, and your religion can't have any influence on how we run our government. We're not going to pass a law because Jesus came to you in a dream and said it's supposed to work. We're not doing that. So I believe in complete separation between religious organizations and the apparatus of the state. The other thing, the incentives, right? If I do believe that what's causing the increase of religion is that people, especially when they're suffering, they want an outlet. They want something to feel better. So instead of building more churches, we try to meet the needs of the people. So that way they know that their needs are met. They don't have to look towards a heavenly paradise. They don't have to be content with suffering on this earth with the idea that when they die, all their suffering will be ended. And that's really the appeal of religion, is that people, at their worst, they need something to feel comfort. We're going to deal with the here and now. We're going to deal with making people's lives in this world better, so they don't have to look forward to an afterlife. And I think that if we do that, we separate the powers. Hey, you can believe what you want to in your home, but when it comes to how we run the system, no, you leave that to yourself. We're not building no statues of Jesus. We're not doing any of that. Yet we're going to sit up here and have a society where you can influence how we run our stuff. You can get mad about it, but if I find out that you're using your church to influence our politicians, and you're closed. We're not doing that. That's how I would kind of look at it, me personally.
Appreciate that, Black Steel. In the chat, there was a couple of comments to what Black Steel had to say. Trigger said freedom of religion is the biggest scam there is because no one really following a model of diversity besides countries with multiple religions. It goes on to say typically countries that are of majority will push the major religion. Arabs are mostly Muslims. Euros are mostly Christian. That's what they will push, and they will never let something, I guess, flare up. He says, so to me, it's either a government is supposed to sponsor the culture in a dominant fashion, or it's incorporated. Cheryl says, I think if black people want to practice Arab religion, they should go to Arab nations to live, etc. For any other Abrahamic religion. Real Black Gentleman says, Jesus don't need to tell me how to run the water lines. Jesus don't need to tell me how to run the water lines. Lastly, Cheryl says, we don't have time for your kids to be arguing, my kids, about how Jesus is the way, the light, and the truth. Go to Europe with that. I like that as a last word. Unless there's a last word from someone on the panel, then we can just go to Shooter Breeze topic number 5 tonight. All right. Shooter Breeze topic number 5 tonight says how to use penis power to climb your way to the top. You guys drop a 1 if you're familiar with this story when I put it up. What's his name? Balthazar? Drop a 1 if you're familiar with this story. We'll watch the video and then we shall discuss it.
Over 400 sex tapes. Yeah, 400. That's the starting point for this deep dive. And
my boy got over 400 tapes. He is the Diddy in Africa.
And you're not going to believe who we're talking about. We're looking at a political scandal, really rocking Equatorial Guinea, using reports straight from news outlets and local media. It's going to get a little uncomfortable, but we're going to focus on the facts and what they mean for the country. So, our story. It all centers on Balthazar Nganga. He was the Director General of the National Financial Investigation Agency. He's been accused of secretly recording these tapes, and the women featured, they're deeply connected to the government. I mean, we're talking wives of officials, family members, even the president's sister.
Wow, the implications of someone in Nganga's position, potentially using surveillance tech for this purpose, huge. We have to ask if consent was truly given, or if his power played a role. This isn't just a personal matter. It raises serious questions about the integrity of the agency he leads.
And the location of some of these recordings, it adds another layer to this whole thing.
So the caption says that he has gotten consent from every single woman that he's been with. What? Every single 400 consent? You're gonna tell me not one person didn't know about the camera? Come on, dog. Come on, man. I don't know if I believe all that. Out of all those tapes, you're gonna tell me not one didn't know?
Imagine finding out that these acts took place in his office with the national flag visible in the background. It's a blatant disregard for the office he held.
Yeah, that detail speaks volumes about the potential misuse of government resources and a lack of respect for the institution itself. This isn't just a scandal about personal misconduct. It's a breach of public trust.
Not only are you getting down with all these people, you're getting down with people at work. You're getting down with like high officials. I think they said the president's sister. Dude, let's take a look at this list of alleged relationships that this man has been with. All right. Nganga, we gonna do bang Nganga, dude. You bang a lot, no pun intended, right? So look, the wife of the director of presidential security, golly, the attorney general's wife. I mean, damn. I mean, that's up there, man. You're not like aiming for some bottom of the barrel type of female. Like you going after people with power right now as girls. The daughter of the director general of police. Oh, jeez. The wife of his pastor's little brother. God dang. Man, not only is the president, the lawyer of the company, and the general of the police, the people in church not even safe from this guy. All right, keep going. His godfather's wife. Oh, man, you just messing with family. His sentry's wife. His bodyguard's wife. How is that? I can see that can probably happen. 15 friends of his younger sister. Well, I can see how that can happen too, man. I mean, name one older brother that's not looking at a younger sister that's younger than them by like 1 or 2 years old, eyeballing their friends. It happens. His pastor's wife. The wives of several ministers, including Minister Oboro, his own little brother's wife, disrespectful. His uncle's pregnant wife, even more disrespectful.
On a grand scale.
The government has responded swiftly, and Nganga is now imprisoned, facing charges related to corruption, and any officials suspected of similar activities have been suspended. They're calling it a zero-tolerance policy.
It's an interesting approach, but it raises questions about whether this is a genuine effort to root out corruption or a calculated move to control the narrative. We'll need to look at the history of similar policies in Equatorial Guinea.
You're gonna arrest this man for corruption, but all he really was doing was begging people's girls, dude. That he was clapping them all, bro. Bro was literally, dude, 400 in the office, my guy, on film. This is corruption? I mean, is it not? There's something else? Like, that's what y'all hit him with? I mean, just like, damn.
To understand the context and what this might mean for the future.
That makes sense. The Attorney General has stated that
personal
consensual
conduct
sex is
at
not
the
a
job
crime unless coercion can be proven. which adds complexity to the legal situation. But with the potential for the spread of disease and the high profiles of everyone involved, things get murky quickly.
Yeah, this situation really highlights the intersection of personal actions and public life.
See?
Even if some of the relationships were consensual, the potential for blackmail.
Attorney General, dog, he tag you up. You're a victim at this point. You are a victim, my guy. You should be trying to. If I was in this man's shoes and you play me, not only would I just try to be like, man, you really just tapping in. You're doing this on purpose at this point. This is not even a fling thing. You're just doing this just because y'all fell in love. Y'all caught feelings. Bro is really out there knocking them down. Like, he is on a mission. He is targeting.
Damage to reputations adds another layer of concern. And when you consider the potential impact on national security and international relations, the stakes are even higher.
The fallout from this scandal has been immense, igniting public outrage and forcing people to grapple with the realities of power dynamics and accountability within their government. What are your thoughts on the societal impact of this, and where do we go from here?
Right. Scandals like this can trigger a crisis of faith in the government. People start questioning who they can trust. And if their leaders have their best interests at heart, rebuilding that trust requires more than just punishing individuals. It requires addressing the systemic...
My boy has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kids and a wife at home. He got a problem, y'all. He just got a problem with his thing, bro. He likes sharing it. He likes using it, man. He has an addiction at this point. It's really not it. He is leveraging his position in the government to support his
issues
addiction
that allow the situation to occur.
So, what are some of those systemic issues, and how do they play into what we're seeing unfold?
We need to look at this scandal within the existing political climate in Equatorial Guinea. There have been long-standing concerns about corruption and a lack of transparency within the government. This case just throws those issues into sharp relief.
It's like this whole situation has pushed those concerns to the forefront, making them impossible to ignore any longer.
Exactly. And it goes beyond individual accountability. We're talking about systemic issues, how power is distributed, how institutions operate, and how ethical conduct is ensured at all levels of government. This scandal...
I just don't understand how he's getting access to all these high government officials. At this point, I wonder if these guys are just giving them the females just for like money backup. This guy must have something on him, bro. Ain't no way he has this much access. So, this much access to everybody's old lady wife. How, guys? He must have something on these guys. The Diddy of Africa.
It could be a catalyst for demanding deeper reforms.
It all started with these leaked videos, which is a stark reminder of how technology can be used in ways we never anticipated.
Think about it. The accessibility of recording devices and how easily content can spread online has created a whole new set of risks and opportunities. We're seeing this play out all over the world, where private lives collide with public scrutiny in a way that was unimaginable just a few years ago.
And in this case, it goes beyond private lives. The potential misuse of surveillance technology by someone in Ngonga's position.
No lie, be very careful, because I mean, even at my workplace, I mean, the cameras got hacked. All right, literally the cameras got hacked by someone in China, dude. Like any way into the system, they're gonna find a way, and you know what? They're gonna see something and just leak it, just because that's just what hackers do.
Raises serious questions about national security and even international relations.
Absolutely, the potential for leverage and manipulation with this type of material is enormous. It highlights the critical need for robust cybersecurity measures and ethical guidelines for handling sensitive information.
So how do we navigate this new landscape? It feels like we're constantly trying to find a balance between individual privacy and the need for transparency and accountability, especially when it comes to people in positions of power.
It's a delicate balance, and there are no easy answers. Open dialogue, critical thinking, and a commitment to ethical principles are essential. We need to have open conversations about the responsible use of technology, the limits of privacy, and the importance of holding those in power accountable for their actions.
One detail that really struck me was the report that some of these recordings took place in Ngonga's office, right next to the national flag. What does that say to you about the situation?
To me, that's a powerful symbol. It speaks to a complete disregard for the institution he was supposed to represent. All
right, man. Y'all want to talk about technology at this point, man. We're getting a little bit away from the actual story, from the original narrators to the second party narrators, now into me. Guys, my thoughts are this man is literally a villain. I don't know what kind of stuff he has over these other guys' heads. I don't know if he's making use of his position in the office to, finance something, give extra money, and in return people are just giving him their wives as a favor, a party favor at this point. Like, I still, in my mind, just don't know how he can tackle all those high-ranking officials, girls. I just don't know. That's just me. Y'all seen the picture. They were all lined up, and he tagged almost every single one of them. All right, but the disrespectful thing is your uncle's pregnant girlfriend. Golly, man. There's no one off limits. Have you no self-control or self-respect for family? I get it. A man of your nature probably does not. And you have an addiction, you have a problem, and you'll do anything that you can leverage to satisfy that addiction. Ganga, dude, I don't know what to say. You are a
All right. How many of you in the chat on the panel had heard about this story when it dropped maybe like 3 weeks ago? I'm curious, so I'll start with Oni first. I want to know, did this come up at all in the news where you're at in the continent? What say you, Oni?
Well, yeah, I mean, I heard about it. I don't know if it came up in the news, but it was a social media thing. Actually, I was just minding my business, and then my wife pointed it out to me. She was like, "Yo, but she's on, I don't know, Instagram or Twitter or something like that." So yeah, there was a little conversation. So I heard about it, and we actually talked about it on Harsh Reality podcast. I feel like it was it was a good conversation that kind of put, you know, kind of contextualized this conversation. But I know you're asking everybody, so I'm just gonna wait till that.
No, Oni, you can speak on it now. Speak on it now.
Oh yeah, well, so the guy doesn't use his penis to climb his way to the top. He's already at the top. So this guy he was the next in line for the dictatorship, for the presidency. Um, and I think it might even be like the oldest, like the longest lasting presidency in Africa. I don't know off the top of my head, but let's just say let's pretend it's like since 1978 or something. Did the check? Okay, yeah, since like 1978 or something. So yeah, he's the nephew of the current president, and I guess some people would speculate that um, the son of the current president might see him as his most potent political rival, and so that's the whole release. But again, this guy is the nephew, and so I totally forgot about the story, so I just kind of looked it up to see if there were any updates. And I think the guy, he went to like their serious prison, their prison where people don't return, and let's just say he returned, so he's out free as if nothing happened. So yeah, we're talking about. I think Charles says it best. Um, like we're talking about a guy in power, right? Who can go to Rikers for 1 week and step away. You know, the guy legit next in line to the presidency. So that's why he had this access to these women. And of course, why is he messing with family? I have no idea. I think he does have some. This is a sick person. He does have some sort of hyper addiction. Um, but he's also, but we also have to put into context that this is a guy who has like who's probably like the second richest person in the country. You know what I mean? The second most powerful person in the country. His and this is a country with extreme nepotism and extremely anti-democratic. And I'm not a fan of democracy. I'm just pointing out extreme, like let's say extreme corruption. Okay, the president's been there for let's say 40 years. All right, no contest, no contesting. The next president would be between the current president's son or his nephew. His nephew holds a high political office like chief of finances. The president's son holds a high political office. The president's brother, this guy's father, holds another chief economics, so on and so forth. This is a hugely corrupt, nepotistic society. So of course he has access to women and women who are relatives and women who are colleagues, women who are coworkers. He shouldn't have this job, but this is now again, I don't know if I can blame religion here because I don't know the religion here. But this is what we talk about when we talk about ignorance, when we talk about people not generally reading, when we talk about the suppression of the state and how the state can just do anything, because the state is the arbiter of violence. The state was sending, if you're a political if you're a political opposition, you're going to this prison that this guy can go to and walk out of in 2 weeks. So yeah, it's a real story, obviously, but the reality is that this is not like this is basically Hunter Biden. You know what I mean? Who could go do pot in the middle of the White House. You know what I mean? Like it's not like the rules don't apply to these sort of people. And he probably is a sex addict. So this is the expression that his corruption or the nepotism of this society takes. That's it.
Oni, what do you think of this? Sound like white folks talking about this thing as if Bill Clinton wasn't in the White House getting BJ's. What do you think about that? The way and the tone that they're talking about it.
Well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's. I'll put it this way. I mean, honestly, I don't know about this whole like black people are sometimes we're like we don't want white people talking about our conversation, but I feel like we talk about white people's conversations all the time. And I think one of the things about that is, um, like these white people are not they're not special. You know what I mean? They are looking to create content too. And I was actually talking to my wife was actually pointing out to me. She was like, "You don't do any podcasts anymore?" I was like, "Wait, no, I still do. I still want to." But I realized if you're not talking about current events, it is pretty. It's much harder to talk about to do content. And I think, as far as I could tell, those white people were on World Star Hip Hop, so it's like they're on a platform that for all intents and purposes, caters to a black audience. You know, um, and I don't know why they're the newscasters in World Star, but I don't even know what World Star is about, honestly. like I don't know why World Star was a thing. I just know black people posted punching and kicking on World Star. So I would say, yeah, white people talking about black issues. I think in America, it's really kind of a melting pot at this point. Like coming from somebody who's like now living in Africa, I guess. Like I could see how America was just kind of like you know melting pot, and really it was like I could see how black people and white people they're both looking to create weekly or daily content, and given that World Star caters to the lowest denomination of black people at this point. No disrespect to the World Star fans, right? But given that World Star does that, like I'm not surprised that World Star would be talking about not that this is a bad issue, but I'm not surprised that we'll start talking about this. And if there's white people on the panel, I'm not surprised white people are talking about it. But also, I think, at the end of the day, like my experience in America is that black people are always talking about white people stuff. Even when white people are not around, white people are not there, black people, and just the same, you put it on white people that white people are pretty damn obsessed with black people too. So it's just this weird, both sides being obsessed with each other that, at the end of the day, I'm like, yeah, well, I mean, they want to pay their bills too. You know what I mean? And they're actually getting paid and from World Star Hip Hop, they're probably getting paid good money to talk about it. So yeah, white people will talk about black stuff for money, and the only problem is that a lot of black people talk about white stuff for free. You know what I mean? And that's all I would say.
Well said there. Thank you for that, Oni. Uh, Cheryl says, "Look how women throw themselves at athletes and celebrities. The puss is free everywhere for powerful men. Not a right or wrong thing, just a fact of life." Our boy Anthony McPhail is out there. He said Equatorial Guinea had been ran by the same family since 1968, first by Francisco Macias, and then his nephew Teodoro Mbasogo, the current leader. He said the current leader the current leader executed his uncle in 1979 and has ruled since then. So that's interesting. I did not know that. With that said, let me go to Jose. Jose, what are your thoughts on all of it?
Well, I my whole life I wonder what we always speak of women as if they are things that we pick up, impregnate, or pick up and use and then put back where we found them. And that's it's yeah. It amazes me. Let me put it that way. And people are speaking of victims, and he did something to those women. Yeah, he made them happy for a couple of minutes, for a couple of minutes. And what I want to say to the ladies, ladies, stop bragging about the the D. Stop begging. Stop telling each other that you had a good time with a certain man, because your girlfriends are going after that man. You know, I'm not a lady man, but even I have lived it. I had a platonic relationship with a girl. She had friends, and I had almost all of them. Like, you know, if you have one, she's going to tell the next one. She's going to tell the next one. Good time, yeah. Come get your good time. So, ladies, stop bragging about your man, your boyfriend, etc. Keep it in the home. Keep it between you and him. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, to be honest, a woman I used to date years ago told me that too. She was like, I won't be telling no friends about you and this, that, and the other, because as soon as you start talking about a guy makes you happy to women, other women want to come and deal with your man. So I've heard that before too, Jose. So thanks for that. Um, Real Bad Gentleman in chat said, hoes get horny, ninjas die. That's a Tupac quote. Um, Cheryl says, meanwhile in Ghana, man has 4 wives and they're wonderfully happy. Interesting, right? With that said, let me hear from Black Steel on this. Black Steel would say,
The Bill Clinton thing, it's a matter of quantity. Bill Clinton had Monica Lewinsky. This dude had 400 women. So it's really a matter. And then it was all people he knew. It wasn't like strangers, his intern. It's like his brother's pregnant wife or something like that. Like, come on, bro. This is what we call dirty dicking. This is a dirty dick dude, okay? But Anthony talked about the Equatorial Guinea, and the president has been in charge. But one thing I was, while we were talking, I'm looking up. It says that Equatorial Guinea is one of sub-Saharan Africa's largest oil producers. It's the richest country in Africa per capita, and its gross domestic product ranks 43rd in the world. However, the wealth is distributed extremely unevenly, with few people benefiting from oil riches. Less than half of the population has access to clean drinking water, and 7.9% of children dying before the age of 5. It's also the only country in Africa where Spanish is, spoken as an official language. It says it has a totalitarian government and one of the worst human rights records in the world, consistently ranked among the worst of the worst. Let's see, it has human trafficking as a problem, forced labor and sex trafficking is a destination and a source of it. So this makes me question, even if this was done willingly, or these women were sleeping with this dude because of his power, right? His access to wealth, his access to the president. It's not just a matter of he just smashing everybody, but it's like these women made a conscious choice. If I give him something, maybe I can get this. Maybe I can get this. It's just really just, to me, it's just kind of giving coercion. People were messing with dude because it's a pathway to a better life. Um, Ultimately, I don't. The situations like this, you know, what happened between two consenting adults, I really don't care. But I think the overall condition of the country made, he was like, hey, I can get you some papers, I can get you this, you let me hit this, and I can, make sure your son don't got to spend no more time in jail, help you get these school fees, whatever. I think maybe he was using his authority in the government to maybe coerce these women. Maybe, maybe not. But this is the amount of women that are involved. 400? I don't think I know 400 women personally. So the idea that he could just smash all these women makes me think, okay, maybe he has something over them. Maybe he was able to do a favor because of his position in government. That's why he stayed in jail for a day and was out the next day, free as a bird. So it's just, I don't know. There's a lot of questions. I'm not here to preach about what's moral and immoral, but I do think it just makes me beg the question, like, what is going on in these conditions? Just make me think. I'll leave it there.
I almost forgot. I almost forgot. He's got a wife, 6 children, and she fucks around too.
I'll say they're just freaks. Okay, all right, they're just freaks. Okay, it is what it is. They're just freaks. Everybody, some freaky people out there. Kendrick Lamar said freak ass niggas they just stay their ass inside. So who knows? They decided to venture out. I don't know.
Full disclosure, I saw some of the videos, and it wasn't 400 of them, but those women were cooperating with him in those videos. I'll put it like that. Cheryl says the context here, though, has to be mentioned. Monogamous relationships are seen as top tier. More than one wife, then you're a savage. Very evangelical Christian thinking. So I know who put the post up on the Discord. And by the way, if you're not on the Discord, hit the link in the description of this episode. Join the Discord, navigate your way to Shoot the Breeze topics channel, and post your topics. Post a 2-sentence prompt and an attachment to YouTube or Instagram or what have you. I know who posted it, but I'm trying to figure out what was, because according to several of you, this guy didn't use his penis to climb any ladder to power. So why do you think it was phrased that way? How to use penis power to climb your way to the top? Anybody have any insights on that? Okay, I guess not.
Nah,
All right.
I guess
Yeah.
what's the word? Yeah, how they look at Africa. I guess like as if you don't have academics and that type of stuff. I guess that's it. Uh, Nonsense.
Yeah, I can't see because again, if his uncle killed his uncle, killed the other uncle, killed the uncle's uncle, I guess, in order to be in power since 1979. I don't think this guy is climbing up with his dick. It seems like he's just a freaky ass, a dirty dick dude. That's it. So, yeah, I don't think he used his penis power to climb his way to the top. It just seems like he's just a dirty dick dude. Which is yeah, I mean that's weird. Because again, I think sleeping with your because again, so when they say his brother's wife, you got to remember his brother is like the son of the president. No, sorry, no, his brother is another uncle. Sorry, his brother's whatever. But like, let's say his cousin's wife, that's the son of the president's thing, or his uncle's wife, that's the president's wife. You know what I mean? So he's related to these people. Um, he's just doing stuff that you really, really shouldn't do. Like messing with relatives of family is really bad. But if you look at like I guess traditional Europe, it's probably a thing. You know, um, but like people sleep with cousins and all that kind of stuff. That's probably a thing. But yeah, I think yeah he didn't use penis power to climb. I think he was already at the top. Um, like for yeah he was born at the top. That's it.
Yeah, it's some crazy shit going on. Like the son of the president, he's known for shopping sprees, and going home with three Italian. Yeah, you know the brands. Three Italian cars at once, and that type of stuff. But question, and maybe off topic. But does somebody knows who buys their oil? Because it's an oil. banana state. Does somebody know something?
I'm not sure personally. Doesn't sound like anyone else here knows. Maybe Anthony, if he's still in the chat, maybe he can answer that question. He tends to know damn near everything about everything. So
I'm trying to look it up now. 'Cause that's a good question. I'm trying to look it up, but I don't know off the top of my head now.
yeah, is it India? Who buys their oil? In the chat, Cheryl says. In the chat, Cheryl says he only got 6 children, and then she has a few laughing emojis. Then she says, when you're trying to create an empire, you need heirs. Very simple. She goes on to say, no one ever said he was smart, but his actions don't reflect the question. All right.
So the answer says it's ExxonMobil, Marathon Oil, Cosmos Energy, and Chevron.
Just so you got your answer, you want to add anything to it?
It sounds very American.
All right. If there's no last thoughts, let's go to the last topic for tonight. Should be topic number 6. Should be topic number 6 says, this is what the black man's energy needs to be. This takes us to Instagram. Make sure it's sharing properly. Yeah, it takes us to Instagram. You know, this is a reel, so it's short. I'll play it twice or so, and then we'll discuss it.
I got 8 brothers. Let one of them get hung. I would that person's whole family and wouldn't even blink twice. Kids, babies, dogs, grandmothers, old people, every single person from your family existence would be no longer here if one of my brothers was I one of them. God forbid, my brother get killed by a police officer. Everybody in that cop's family is gonna, every single one, including the cop, in his lawyer, in the judge that won't give the conviction. I'm getting them all, and I'm gonna get away with it and be on a run for the rest of my natural fucking life, enjoying the memory of those cowards begging me for their while I put a in their mouth and emptied the and then on them. I have no remorse. They gave us no remorse. They gave us no peace. Rape my women, rape my sisters, black women screaming to their lungs. Ah! Stop! White men laughing, having fun like it was some type of a game. 30 men on one woman, rape in front of their kids, in front of their husband. You think I give a fuck about somebody's opinion? I didn't forget. I make sure I remind myself the fuck these motherfuckers be doing. I don't give a fuck about give a fuck about fuck all of them. This shit been going on in the ghetto for over 400 fucking years. You think I feel sorry to say I'm a god? You think I feel sorry to give somebody watching this that look like me hope? You think I care if Felix is unfucking comfortable? I don't give a fuck about Felix, and they didn't give a fuck about us. That's why they in power, and they lied, and they still do it to this day. I'm not a victim, so I'm not gonna create a generation of victims. I'm gonna create a generation of black people that's with the shits. You ain't gonna just pull me over and think you gonna kill me. I got 8 brothers. Let one of them get hung. I would that person's whole family and wouldn't even blink twice. Kids, babies, dogs, grandmothers, old people, every single person from your family existence would be no longer here if one of my brothers was I one of them. God forbid, my brother get killed by a police officer. Everybody in that cop's family is gonna, every single one, including the cop, in his lawyer, in the judge that won't give the conviction. I'm getting them all, and I'm gonna get away with it and be on a run for the rest of my natural fucking life, enjoying the memory of those cowards begging me for their while I put a in their mouth and emptied the and then on them. I have no remorse. They gave us no remorse. They gave us no peace. Rape my women, rape my sisters, black women screaming to their lungs. Ah! Stop! White men laughing, having fun like it was some type of a game. 30 men on one woman, rape in front of their kids, in front of their husband. You think I give a fuck about somebody's opinion? I didn't forget. I make sure I remind myself the fuck these motherfuckers be doing. I don't give a fuck about give a fuck about fuck all of them. This shit been going on in the ghetto for over 400 fucking years. You think I feel sorry to say I'm a god? You think I feel sorry to give somebody watching this that look like me hope? You think I care if Felix is unfucking comfortable? I don't give a fuck about Felix, and they didn't give a fuck about us. That's why they in power, and they lied, and they still do it to this day. I'm not a victim, so I'm not gonna create a generation of victims. I'm gonna create a generation of black people that's with the shits. You ain't gonna just pull me over and think you gonna kill me. I got 8 brothers.
Yeah, I like that energy from that youth there. Cheryl in the chat said, and that's real talk 100. Yeah, I like that. I like that. With that said, let's talk about. Let me start with Jose this time. Jose, what say you to this?
Yeah, fire, fire. It's it's yeah, it's it's strong from one side, but if I believe you're outnumbered, etc. In their country. But this indeed is the attitude. I think this young man has gone viral more than once before with yeah, he's an old soul, I guess. He's an old soul because he's been hitting my mind more than once. Yeah, I yeah, I know. Yeah, about manhood, about yeah. I guess he's an old soul and a young body. Yeah, that's all. That's all. Strong.
Appreciate that, Jose. Black Steel, what say you to this?
Hey man, I love the energy though, like you were saying. Um, I think that anger in the face of injustice is a good thing, right? I think too many times we lose our anger, our sense of righteous rage that we need because what's been happening to our people over the centuries is a crime beyond all description. There's no punishment that could possibly appease our ancestors for what was done to them. Their lives, their futures, there's everything was taken from you. So I get everything he's saying, and I feel the same way. I don't have his confidence that I would survive the encounter with the police like he does. I probably wouldn't, but I don't think I could live with myself if I didn't try to take at least some of them with me. That's what the kids call a crash out. He's a definite crash out. But you know what? Sometimes you got to crash out, like the kids say. That might be a time for it. So, yeah, I just don't have his faith that I would survive the encounter. But I think I would have made my peace with that. If I'm not going to be here, at least I could take a few of them with me. You don't get to go home and eat and watch football and have sex with your wife, play with your kids, while my family members laying cold and in their grave. That's just not. We're not doing that. So I totally understand his energy. I respect it and I admire. I think we need more of that energy. I just don't think that, like I said, we get to that point. I'm doing, in the words of Dr. Huey P. Newton, I'm ready to commit revolutionary suicide if that's what it comes to. Meaning that basically I'm willing to engage the force that would take my life, and I know they're going to take my life, but I still do it anyway because you rather die than live in bondage. So respect to him. I don't know. He's definitely um, somebody that I admire his energy and his gumption. All right, I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Appreciate that, Black Steel. In the chat, Cheryl says it's Game of Thrones in this bitch. Um, Trigger Happy says righteous anger instead of mellow indifference. I appreciate that. Cheryl says average black people don't feel this because they've been pacified by Christ. And that's a good way to tie in these topics, Cheryl. I appreciate that. Um, I don't know if this guy is the smart guy, but someone said not for the weak, the smart guy. Um, Someone said, damn, he's angry about shit that happened over 100 to 2 years ago. Damn. I got 96 replies. I'm curious to see what they all say, but I'll check out later. Someone else says some of y'all might not agree, but I felt him on this. Someone else says Zimmerman. Can someone please explain why he is still breathing in freedom? Another person said his feelings are 10,001% valid. His words, his feelings, 10,001% valid. His words, no, he could turn his words into something more empowering, like speaking true religion facts, becoming a vessel for the Lord, our Lord. And what would be scary, but not in a fearful type of way, but scary in a holy way, something different and pure, taking his pain and mental and giving it to the Lord. That's how things really start to change. Really? Really? We've been giving it to the Lord, giving Jesus the wheel, and giving Allah to whatever, and nothing has changed. Right? Someone said multiply this brother by 2 million. That's all we need to get a leg up. Now, that I agree with 100%. This brother's energy is spot on, but notice the prompt says black men. We need, the majority of us need to have this type of energy. You know, I always think about Trayvon Martin and how Zimmerman, killed him. His son, killed Trayvon. And Trayvon's dad is out here walking around, man. Trayvon's dad is out here walking around, man. Doing what? With Zimmerman walking around breathing free air. You know? In the chat, Anthony says, I agree 100% with the brother. That's how I feel about every European and any enemies to black people. John Brown and Jane Elliott and Jane Elliott too. Ain't no good ones. Shirley's laughing her ass off.
Hey, you leave John Brown name out your mouth, sir. Hold on now.
Cheryl said the Jewish never let you forget. Yeah, they say never forget. We say take it to Jesus and Allah and whoever else and then forget about it. With all of that said, only you've heard it all. What say you? This is what the black man's energy needs to be. What say you?
Yeah, so a long time ago, I decided to read Native Son by Richard Wright. And the reason why is because somebody told me, oh, not somebody, it was an article online saying that, the big, like Malcolm X was the bigger Thomas of his generation. And you're like, who the freak is Bigger Thomas? And so Bigger Thomas is this fictional character in Native Son. And, the author of the article is making the argument that, in America, there's always been a Bigger Thomas, right? Which is a black person who is like not trying to go along to get along. Because most black people are trying to go along to get along, right? Black person is not trying to go along to get along who's like, hey, it's a segregated movie theater. I don't give a shit. I'm sitting in this, I'm sitting in the white section. I don't give a fuck, right? And then white people kill him, uh, or to try to teach a lesson or something like that, or try to enforce the status quo, right? In the same way, you have uh, there's this article, there's this documentary. I didn't watch it, but the name of the documentary is like "Kill the Brute," and the idea is that Western society is formed around this idea of killing that warrior class of any people. And I remember even going back to my sociology classes. We're just surrounded by white people, right? Because for some reason I went to a HWIC, historically white college, whatever, right? And and the 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 professor was pointing out how communities have changed from families handling justice towards the state handling justice. So even in a white community, some guy beats up your sister. Once upon a time, this is the white man telling me, right? Once upon a time, the father would try to settle that score or what have you, but now that's illegal. You know what I mean? And not just that's illegal, but you're expected to call the police and see if the police can handle it, and all that kind of stuff in the white community. Now, obviously, it's much worse in the black community because you're not being policed by black people; you're being policed by white people, right? Or white laws and so on and so forth. So, what I'm saying is that this energy is, or at least this apparent energy, right, is something that white people are trying to suppress. And I completely agree with Cheryl, in the sense of, it is partly Christian, but it's also partly the state. The state wants to be the arbiter of violence. The state wants to handle the violence of the world. Um, Now, here's the other issue, right? When we talk about state media, okay, when we talk about state media and what the state can do, right? And I like how they cut the Phoenix, right? The white boy, I guess they just like, but what the state does is it it sometimes tries to identify the brutes. You know what I mean? Sometimes tries to get the brutes out. I remember a long time ago there was like this Marcus Garvey centennial celebration or something, and then this brother was telling us how he was organizing like boxing matches in his backyard or something like that, right? Just regular, combat training, so on and so forth. And then the FBI came and visited him, okay, or the CIA, whatever, came and visited him and said, "Why are you organizing a fight club in your backyard? Cut that shit out. You're talking pro black stuff while you're organizing a fight club. Cut that shit out." And the same with this one time, there was a sister. Her name was I segment, no I something segment, something like that. And she was like, "Yeah, man, fuck the police. I'll shoot the police." Blah 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 blah. And then eventually they came and visited her and said, "Yo, no," they arrested her, and she's all, "Oh, I was just saying that for content." I was just saying that for content. Don't, so on and so forth. And like I said, I used to organize back in Brooklyn, and there was this one brother who just always in military fatigue, so like military gear, like just decked out like some Pan African general, right? And yeah, he tells us, yeah, when he's posted online, people come and stop by his door. America's taking this shit serious. So like, as much as I like the idea of, oh, no, I didn't want to say I like that idea, but as much as black men saying, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to take matters to my own hand. I don't give a shit about what the state does, and so forth." There's two things that we have to remember. One, why are they saying this? Right now, sometimes people are saying this for good reasons, right, or because they really believe it. Sometimes people are saying it to smoke you out. Okay. Sometimes they're saying it to smoke you out. But the other part of it is that maybe when you're outnumbered and surrounded, right? um, Maybe you got to also be realistic. And I think that's the thing that a lot of black people are doing, is that they're being realistic. Because when I heard like this message that he's saying, where he's going to survive killing the whole family and being on the run his whole life in America, that's possible, right? I don't know to what extent you could actually pull it off. You know what I'm saying? But what I'll say is this: one of my favorite poems back in the day was Claude McKay, also Jamaican, right? But in America, but he says, "If we must die," and of course I can recite it, top to bottom. But the whole thing about "if we must die" is that when Claude McKay was articulating it, he knew they weren't like they couldn't kill, they couldn't kill off the majority population. You know what I mean? They were just saying, if we must die, let it not be like, hogs, hunted, dependent, and glorious spot. The point being, yeah, I don't know personally. Me personally, I like when quote unquote killers have bodies. You know what I mean? Like if you have bodies and you're like, hey, look, I could do this. That makes a lot more sense. But I also don't know people who are going to be having bodies and bragging about, killing people. So I don't. I again, Marcus Garvey says, anybody could talk. You know what I mean? Um, and that's the reality. Anybody could say anything. But the question is, where are the results? I'll put it that way. How many black men do you hear? I mean, of course, not many black men are saying this, so I give them props for that. But again, how often can the police kill a black person in their home and go and eat a butter sandwich the next day? How often do we see this, and do we blame this on religion, or do we blame this on the fact that black people are not vocalizing this normal sentiment, or do we just recognize that you are in a prisoner of war situation, and maybe you should just get out if you really think these people are going to lynch you? You know what I mean? Like if you really think these people are going to lynch you, and the only thing stopping them is that you have some military superiority to them, or you have some cunning over them, then maybe you're not really like you really don't understand what's going on, right? You're in a situation where they have military superiority. You're in a situation where they have greater cunning, greater reach, and greater so on and so forth. And if you really feel like they're a hostile people, then just get out. You know, because that's what I do. Like, I don't worry about whether I got to kill a white man for lynching my son or all this shit. I don't worry about that shit at all in Africa. Like not even remotely. It doesn't even cross my like. I'm not even worried about the police here in this country. Like, I don't even see police. You know, like, my experience in this country is that I might actually be more protected just off the fact that I have some, economics going on. Now, maybe that's a false impression. I don't know. But the reality is that if you really feel like, hey, you know what? I feel like I'm in a hostile state. People don't give a shit about me. The state is going to, so on and so forth. And I have to go live my life on the run, like some sort of, because I'm going to go try to butcher a whole family. If you really feel like that's what your life is going to be, then just get the out. You don't have to be there. You know, you don't have to be there, and that kind of life is not a free life as far as I'm concerned. And again, I don't even know if this guy's even being genuine. Like, obviously, it's interesting if he is, right? But if he isn't, like, that's just another aspect to Western media at this point. And that's all I'll say.
Sounds like a lot of fleeing tether talk. But seriously, but seriously,
Got you.
I think here's the thing. When I saw this, my thoughts were, this is the sentiment that we should all have. Whether you stay, whether you go, within you, within your heart should be sounding like this. Whether this guy is genuine or not doesn't really matter to me much. But that sentiment matters to me a bunch, because I think wherever you go anyway, I think one day we're going to have to fight now. This idea that we're going to just run and go somewhere, one day we'll have to fight. Our chances are better on our continent, obviously. But one day we'll have to fight. And I think we need to have this in our heart. And I think a part of this talk that's not being discussed, I guess there's a likely, not likeliness, but I guess there's a chance that this is an agent talking. We have all this agent talk that goes on in America. But the thing that I take from it, there's a level of consciousness here. And I think if we could get that level of consciousness up with more of our black men, I think we can get men who feel this way, who might not necessarily go out in public and talk about it, but men who feel this way and are ready to act on it in this way, should something happen to a family member, to a son, to a daughter, or what have you, right? I think that's the important part of it. We should have that spirit in us to stand up and do something, right? So that's my thing. I could run back to Caribbean. One day Caribbean folks are gonna have to stand up too. Right? Within the so-called backyard of these people, one day you're gonna have to stand up too. You go to Africa, look, right now the Sahel states are well, more than the Sahel, but a lot of those countries, those former French settler states, are tossing out the military. But someone was telling me the other day, yeah, but the French are positioning their militaries off the coast of a lot of these countries. So what's going to happen? You're going to have to fight one day, and I wish every man out there has at least this spirit that this guy is speaking to. Is there any other thoughts from the panelists here on this topic tonight?
Wait, I wanted to say something. I forgot. So one of the reasons why I'm just like a little skeptical, not skeptical, but there's this book. I think it's The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. I know, no feminism, right? But Toni Morrison writes this book, and you're just like, okay, like what could possibly be in a Toni Morrison book? And I think in the background of the story, whatever the story is, I don't remember, but there's like a secret black organization where if there's an injustice against black people, like if a black person is killed by some random white people or whatever, then this organization goes out and kills a white person, like maybe a random white person or something like that. And it's a secret organization in the book. And the reason why I'm saying that is to say that it's so easy to talk. You know what I mean? Like you got Toni Morrison, who I wouldn't even associate with revolution at all, right? Or with any sort of radicalism or any sort of, collecting bodies or whatever, right? And she's saying, hey, you know what? Like I could write this shit. You know what I mean? Like anybody could say anything. And that's why it's like, yeah, obviously, like I said, when I read it from Toni Morrison, I was like, what? Toni Morrison said that? Right? But then it's like, even Toni Morrison could say it, And that's the thing that black people don't pick up on generally. Like I could tell you guys about my experience in the UAM, United African Movement. The president of the United African Movement, so the chairman of the United African Movement was Alton H. Maddox Jr. The president was Al Sharpton. Okay, so the United African Movement at the time was one of the most radical organizations on the planet with the best speakers coming through. Amos Wilson, Al Mansour, Dr. Clark, Dr. Ben, everybody just coming in, giving lectures. Like half of the lectures you see on YouTube from these scholars were recorded there. And in the audience was Al Sharpton. So Al Sharpton could say everything that made sense, that resonated with you, that made you so on and so forth. Al Sharpton was not on that time, and that's the thing that people have to realize when they arrested Isaac Met, whatever. She wasn't on that time, but she was talking that stuff. And the reality is that if anybody can say anything, it's just a matter of what are they doing, And that's kind of goes back to what Carter G. Woodson said, which is anytime you hear a man speaking, ask him what he's doing or what he's done you know and like if you're talking along the lines of yeah because I mean, again, it's not that you can't kill like a whole white family and escape, because you can do that. It's just a question of, will you do that? You know what I mean? Or have you done it? And not just will or have you done it, but like, are you really organizing to do it? Because there are black men who go out and say, look, I'm going to collect some bodies from white folk, and they collect maybe one or two bodies, or I don't know, 3-4 bodies, right? But then you say, in the long run, what does that like does that really change much? Or what could they have done with the skills that they had? Could they have trained a group of people to do that? And then now it becomes a question of, well, if you train people to do this, like how do you get away with that in a state like such a heavily surveillance state as the United States? Like it becomes, like I'll put it this way. I read Art of War by Machiavelli, right? And one of the things that he was pointing out was that location of a battle is really important. And so it comes to the question of, yeah, you could absolutely fight this white boy in his home territory, right? Surrounded by what's 300 million white people, right? With what, 70 or 100 million of a fascist bent, right? You can absolutely do that, or you can fight them from an actual military, because if you, one person, butcher 8 white people and get away with it, that's okay, I guess, right? But I don't know, like what are you really going to change? You, like you said, you're just going to be hunted for 50, 60 years, or if you survive that long, and then what? Because you're like, and again, I guess if the mentality was generally like that, then yeah. But if the mentality was generally like that, maybe I like we have to realize that a lot of the reason why they're keeping black folk alive in America is because let's just, all right, put it this way: they're not like the Native Americans. You know what I mean? And that's the big difference. Yeah, I mean, and I'm not saying I'm scared. I mean, again, me personally, I'm not in America, but what I'm saying is that like like I mean, even like your escape plan, right? All right, put it this way: if you were in Palestine, if you were in Gaza, and you said, "Man, I don't give a shit. I'll do anything to the Israeli," like it doesn't even sound realistic that you'd be able to hide away from the Israeli, because the Israeli just bombed the whole freaking town. You know what I mean? So like, if white people took on the paradigm of we're going to treat you like Gaza, right? Like, I think the part reason why they're not treating you like Gaza is because you're not like Gaza. You know what I mean? like you're not them. So I get it, but like yeah, I could see this person being a Palestinian and saying this, and it'd be like, yeah, I totally agree, I guess, but I don't know. I think the whole premise. I think that, like, again, if the 2 million black people had this mentality, like, yeah, it's just a different, like, you. I don't know if you'd be able to hide in America. I'll just put it that way. I mean, again, I don't know, but I think it's a different landscape.
Yeah, I think it just starts with one. To get a 2 million, you have to start with a number one. I think this sentiment, if any youth are listening, man, you know, at the end of the day, you have to have that fighting spirit. You have to have that vengeful spirit as well, wherever you are. Whether you're gonna survive it or not, a lot of different people don't even think about whether they'll survive it or not. They'll go down with the ship, they'll stand on business, blah blah blah. And I think you have to. And I think, to be real, I think some of us in the diaspora and other parts of the diaspora need to have a little bit more of that spirit in us too. Of course, be organized. Don't be a don't be a lone a loner in this thing. Be organized. Have a philosophy that underpins it all. Pan African philosophy will be great. That underpins it all. Thinking about power in an African sense to underpin it all be great. But that spirit, that energy, I think is a good energy to start to adopt. Like Cheryl said, we still have to fight and defend. And that's the other part. We don't talk about defense enough. And that spirit right there is a good defense spirit too. That's all the topics for tonight, man. I hope the show went over smoothly for you guys who are watching live in the chat. For those of you who will be checking it out in the playback, hopefully it was okay for you guys on the panel tonight. There's a different streaming software we're using. It seemed to be okay. You guys will let me know in the chat. Give me some feedback on anything, if anything needs to change or if it's just thumbs up all around. Before you guys leave the panel, do me a favor and give a shout out before you go. Let me start with Oni. Oni, what will be your shout out this week?
Shit, I totally forgot. Wait, it'll come back to me, I guess. I don't. Let me think about something. Well, I know. Actually, no. It's always the Sahel states. They are like that brother. I think he just opened up a tomato factory or something. Like these brothers, like they're showing us what could be done. And it's like my only regret. No, not my only regret, but like one of my regrets is that I'm not there. Because they want the help, they need the help, and like I just kind of wish I was there with us. But yeah, those people are doing it. That's one, and two, they're showing us that it could be done. And that's the thing too. It's like when we talk about energy, right? Like that right there, what that brother's doing, Ibrahim Traore particularly, but all of the Sahel states, they just paying off their debts. They're just opening factories and so on and so forth. That right there is that genuine energy. Like I said, you could judge a man by his works, or I think it's the Bible that says you could judge a tree by the fruit it bears, something like that. Like that's what I want to see. Like I don't know this guy. Maybe he has a bunch of good fruits. I don't know. I don't personally know, but like Traore is showing us that he like what's real, and so it's always a shout out to him because a lot of people are just waiting for something to mess up, something to think. And those haters are gonna, they're staying quiet on the praise of this brother until, something bad happens. Like, oh man, I knew this was, whatever. You know, Me personally, real recognize real. You know what I mean? Game recognize game, grandpa. And that brother looked familiar. You see what I'm saying? So that's it.
Appreciate that, Oni. Shout out to Kofi the Black Critic. He's out there in the chat. He said, just saw the video. I agree. Actually, Kofi just came up right now. Kofi, we're about to end the panel. Actually, we're doing shout outs. But how are you this week? Kofi, can you hear me? All right. With that said, Black Seal, what would you like to shout out this week?
Well, my grandfather made his transition Friday. He was 86. He lived a long, full life. He got to meet his grandson and his great grandson. So, shout out to him, man. Funerals on Saturday. I mean, he lived a long, full life. 86 years old. What he was a doctor. He was a preacher. He influenced his community a great deal. So shout out to him. This is my last grandparents. I don't have any more.
Yeah, shout out to him. That's amazing that you were able to have him for this long. I applaud that, and I extend my condolences, of course. Cheryl, I'm gonna use this as your shout out. She said, "Black people need to learn to think 200 years in advance. Train your children starting now, and we will have 2 million strong with the same mindset." So that's Cheryl's shout out for me. Jose, what's your shout out this week?
Yes, my sincere condolences. You lose your last grandparents. That's my sincere condolences. I lost a friend this week too. Well, actually last week, but we buried him Friday yesterday for you people yesterday. And it's a really a graffiti a graffiti giant, a graffiti legend here in Rotterdam, or this part of Europe. But the shout out is to Chad and Senegal. My shout out goes out to Chad and Senegal for doing, kicking out the French. Well, Senegal asked them to leave, so I wonder how that will manifest. But yeah, Chad broke all ties after 66 years because they caught them arming Boko Haram. So shout out to Chad. Join AES. Join AES, and especially Senegal become the port, of the resurrection of this empire. And that's it.
Yeah, condolences to you too, Jose. A few people shared those. Um, Kofi's here. Kofi, I guess you're here in time to give a shout out. But how are you this week?
Doing good this week. Just trying a lot of family stuff that I'm doing right now. So I'm off and on, but I caught the show. I just got off the road. But I really caught the show, and I'm really glad I caught the last segment. Um, I agree with everything that what that brother says. I don't really want me. Look, I have a large family, and I've been saying everything that man has said for like forever. There's no consequences. If there was a consequence for killing black people, you think they'll be so loosey goosey with killing black people? No, there's no consequences. That's why I like. That's why I like people like, look. Say what you want about the DC sniper. Say what you want about damn, what's the brother's name that was a cop that was killing other cops out there in California. Oh man, I forgot his name. Right, vigilantes. Look, the law does not like vigilantes, but they really get scared of black vigilantes because white people are scared of us, not because of all the lies that they always say. They're scared of us because they gonna think one day we're gonna wake up like, wait. What's going on here? They are waiting for retribution. And that's what they're scared of. We like find out because we lost our minds, so they're scared. And one day we'll find our minds and do what needs to be done. So when you have people like that, brother, talking like that, it's it's scary to them. It's scary to them. And look, I have 5 children. If anything happens to my children, ancestors forbid. Yeah, I'm not even gonna say because I don't want to use anything to be held against me. But I agree with that brother, and I just want to give a shout out to my daughter. She broke her leg, so I just want to shout out for her for being strong, and just for everyone. Just I feel this is a new day and age for Black people waking up, and for the ones who's not waking up, and for those, Marcus Garvey says, I wish not all Black people go to Africa because the ones that are no good here will be no good over there. And right now, we just have to the ones that are good, we just need to work together for a better future for us and our children. That's where my mind is right now, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, speedy recovery to your daughter, and thanks for coming through even at the end. Well, that's the show for tonight. Again, no one said anything about the stream, but I guess the stream was good. We'll be back next week. Hopefully, more or all of our people will be back next week as well. Until then, I guess you guys be good. Peace.